Chair of the Commission. We will be following the published and posted amended agenda. This meeting is both in person and through Zoom. In the case of the Zoom not working properly, we will continue the meeting in person only. This meeting is being broadcast by Chelmsford Telemedia and will be available on their website and YouTube. And we do have a quorum here at the of the Commission. I'd remind everyone that the Commission is chartered to protect our natural resources and most specifically the wetlands and to manage land held in conservation. A couple of quick notes. First, the NOI hearing on Freeman Lake tonight is not about the herbicide treatment. That is a separate hearing that is scheduled for 2 weeks on May 27th. Tonight, the hearing is about the mechanical harvesting. So just so everyone knows that. The second thing is that I want to say that contrary to what was discussed during last night's select board meeting, we do not have any specific coolest property discussion planned tonight. That is not on our agenda. The Conservation Commission, are working on the conservation restriction and all of the related activities to complete it. We do have an agenda item tonight about recommending the use of CPA money for the purposes of conducting a boundary survey for the 4 coolest property parcels, which is part of our CR process. And as always, the site is and always will be open and accessible to the public. There is and should continue to be clear access between the parking area and the trail system, including the picnic table area. So I don't anticipate any further discussion on coolest tonight. If it needs to be an agenda item at some future night, we can talk about that. But that is all we're going to talk about coolest tonight. I also was asked if we could put the second item on our agenda first. So we will start with Mr. Chris LaValle from the Planning Board, the liaison, and he can give his update to the Conservation Commission. Hello, Chris. Good evening.
Good evening. So the last Planning Board meeting on April 23rd, we primarily talked about the Kate's Corner zoning, and we also got a request from the owner of the landing at Chelmsford Mills on 5559 Middlesex Street to potentially include their area in that zoning too. So we're looking at that as well. This week's meeting, we are continuing that discussion, hopefully winding it down in preparation for a future public hearing that will be prior to the fall town meeting. We don't have any public hearings scheduled for this week. We have a number of administrative type discussions, town meeting debrief, an update on the ADU bylaw, Attorney General review, discussion of potential zoning articles that we might bring forward at fall town meeting, discussing the state planning grant that we're looking at doing to help us with updating use tables and zoning maps, and potentially the strategic plan aspect of our work as well. We will be talking about the planning board part of the strategic plan. We are going to be appointing 2 planning board members to the Climate Resilience and Sustainability Design Guidelines Task Force, and then approving some minutes. So it's going to be a lot of administrative type discussions, no regulatory hearings.
Okay. Any questions for Chris?
No.
Chris, thanks.
Thank
Thanks
you
very much. Okay. Appreciate it. Next, we are going to talk about the COS MOU termination. Let me ask first, are there any citizen concerns other than the COS discussion, the COS MOU termination, that someone has to bring to our attention, something in a totally different area? Let's get that out of the way if there's anyone that has something to bring up. Nope. Okay, so we'll talk about that. I'm going to ask that anyone that wants to speak can come up to the podium and speak. I'm going to limit it to 2 minutes for any given speaker. We do have a busy agenda tonight, so at some point I may decide we've heard enough and we're going to terminate the discussion. Please make sure when you come up you give your name and your address, and we will listen.
He's going to time me, and I'll talk fast because I
Okay.
have a lot to share. Denise Ferguson, John Dalton, 50 High Street. Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity. We're here as homeowners in Chelmsford for 37 years. In that time, we've witnessed our open spaces transform from neglected, where we didn't feel safe setting foot, into jewels of our town. Everybody remembers what Lime Quarry used to be like. Think about that. Naturally, we became concerned that residents are going to lose out when the Conservation Commission ends the MOU with costs. Personally, we benefited from those efforts to maintain the properties and from the community outreach. Cost is why we're aware of the great outdoor spaces that we can enjoy. Also, we're here tonight because we regularly see families with kids visiting those places just like us. At this hour, it's mealtime, so they're at home, bedtime, meals, stories. So those stakeholders aren't likely to be here weighing in, so we're here. We're worried that ending the MOU is likely to degrade the quality and accessibility of these spaces where cost contributes. We have questions. How will the properties be maintained and managed after the MOU ends in 6 months? To our knowledge, this is our knowledge only, there was not an opportunity for resident input ahead of time, nor a plan publicly shared for going forward. We know that the town budget will always be limited, right? We don't have parks and recreation. Conservation, you're tasked with a lot of regulatory responsibilities. There is a lot to do. So to us, the volunteer efforts of COST have been an amazing win-win in extending resources. I'll end with a personal example. 2 years ago, John and I were out at the cranberry bog in the early morning when we noticed mama turtles making their way across the earth dam to lay eggs. We observed they needed protection from curious people and dogs, fast. I wouldn't have known where to go in that moment if not for the ongoing community engagement and education by COS. I reached out and Phil Stanley responded fast. He immediately brought the nesting activity to the attention of someone here, I think, and I just want to thank that person because they acted quickly to post a sign and tape off the area. So I appreciate that. So I want to say the public goodwill and volunteer spirit that COS has nurtured in partnership with our town has made our open spaces far better. I mean, we've experienced that. The collaboration has improved our quality of life. We really don't want to see that lost. Thank you so much for listening. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Emily King. I live at 27 Clover Hill Drive. First of all, I want to thank you all, just realizing that you are volunteers, for volunteering your time. And I'm hoping that I'd ask you to continue the memorandum of understanding with COS. I listened to the conversations that you had in the April 22nd meeting, and it's clear that there's some baggage. It's clear that there's some communication breakdowns. But my son came to watch your committee discuss and deliberate as part of the Communications Merit Badge. He is a scout. And there was a whole group of young men here. And I think that as role models in this community, I would implore you all to find a way to communicate and find literally and figuratively common ground that you have for the good of our community. Because you sort of said that COS, did some good things. They are outstanding and impressive. And I will tell you, I don't know if you are out there raking the beaches and looking for widowmakers and maintaining the trails and doing all the things. I am not, because I'm a teacher and I'm a busy mom, and I don't have that expertise. But they are out there. Their boots are on the ground. They are working. It is quite impressive that despite the issues that you all have with one another, there must be incredible leadership and incredible expertise there, that they have accomplished all that they have and that they have done such an outstanding job. So I would ask you all to work together to continue that partnership for the benefit of our town. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Karen Crowdhamel. I apologize, I'm going to be reading so I don't lose any of my notes. But I have applied for the empty chair that you guys announced in your last meeting, so I'm waiting for my interview with Mr. Cohen. I look forward to that. I was there this morning helping clean up, unfortunately having to give away everything, it sounds like. But I was helping COS this morning. My biggest thing that I want to just say is I've been here for 8 years. This is the open spaces and the fact that the volunteers do what they do, as Emily had just noted, with even cutting grass. Breaking the beach is a huge thing. I lived in Seattle. Seattle, of course, major city, has Parks and Rec paid people. They take care of the parks. They run programming. They have a Park and Rec building in every single neighborhood in Seattle. Lived in New Jersey. Everything's privatized. Lakes were privatized unless you live there. This park is privatized unless you live there. My Lord, coming to Chelmsford, I was like, look at this. It's open to everyone, and it's being cared for by the volunteers. I find that personally amazing. I think it's a huge loss. Again, kind of spanning on what you guys had mentioned. We'll do this to volunteer. You guys will take turns walking. It's everything that COS already has established. So I'm a little bit frustrated, in which, again, I'm not going to go through my resume, but hopefully, I don't know if you've been shared my resume, but I feel like I definitely have qualifications to be on this committee with you. But I mainly just want to say hello to everyone and let them know that I'm running. But as far as the younger kids, I have 4. My youngest now is in 5th grade, so I was able to get away. But during COVID, we ran through the Red Wing. I and my husband run through. Why we run? Because we can. There's no ticks. Because it keeps mowed. It's mowed and mowed. On the news, national news, they talked about how ticks is killing people, literally. So the amount of work that they do to keep them clean up from all the teenagers that are trying to drink and litter in there is just phenomenal. And it's not you can't start from scratch. That's the biggest thing. Is to start from scratch seems absolutely ridiculous. I've heard the stories of how the lands were before I moved here, and I'm thankful of where we are now. So, and then Scouts, we all know the interaction that Scouts has had. I was a Cub Master for 6+ years. Through COS, my Cub Pack had 40 kids. We had 40 kids each got to plant in the pollinator garden, because COS put us in touch with the woman who was in charge of the pollinators, and she nicely had 40 holes dug for my 40 Cub Scouts. So there's just so much overlap and so much opportunity that I feel like this is just a big slap in the face to a lot of people, and it's not okay. And I want to be part of a resolution to make this better, which is why I want to be on your committee. And I volunteer plenty. And this is the next step in volunteering for a town, so I'm ready and able. So I hope to see you guys soon.
Thank you very much.
What's your last name? I'm sorry.
It's Krauthamel. Croutamel. And did I give my address? I'm sorry, 12 Mansfield Drive.
Thank you.
Yep.
Good evening.
Good evening. Beth Benoit, 4 Stony Brook Road, North Chelmsford. I, like many people, many Scout families, owe a debt to COS. I want to make that very clear. I have 2 Eagle Scouts, and COS was a big part of that. Now, I will also say that the COS that existed when my kids were going for Eagle, I do not think is the same organization that it is today. All our volunteer organizations are struggling. And I can't get a good sense of what COS is really capable of. I heard on your April 22nd meeting that COS was not living up to the MOU. And I also heard that the MOU was written with a 6-month notice to terminate in case there was a disagreement, an emotional disagreement, to give there kind of a cooling off period. So my question for you is, if COS actually used the next 5 months and 1 week to actually live by that MOU and prove that they could be a good collaborator in good faith, would it be an option to change that decision? You don't have to answer, I'm obviously just speaking, but I would hope if I was doing something in COS that would be my first response if I had been told I was not living up to an agreement, to actually go and prove that I could live up to that agreement. And I hope if COS is listening to this, that they will take that advice and move forward with it. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Melissa Williams, 114 Robin Hill Road. I've been a resident in Chelmsford for over 20 years. I originally came here because I taught in town. And I want to speak to you, as many of the other residents this evening, that one of the reasons I am standing here is because not only did I choose to move to the town that I was teaching in, but also to raise my children. I have a college student who's 19 and a junior who's 17. And I have benefited, and my whole family has benefited from the cause group. That being said, we still benefit from it. I think somebody had spoken to the fact during COVID. Not only did my family benefit from getting out of the house, going down to Sunny Meadows, using all the green spaces, to be able to communicate and see the volunteers out there on the land, doing the work, communicating with them. I got to meet my students from my classroom, could meet me in an open space in my community. The ability to enjoy the green spaces in our town is something that I treasure. It is something that I know the residents that are standing here, the residents that are at home this evening treasure. And as a teacher, I would ask the board, as well as CAUSE, to think about how you can communicate better and consider renewing the memorandum between you, because, as we've said, we've got lots of Eagle Scouts and people working out with costs in benefit to the conservation. We are modeling for our young children, our young adults, how things are managed. And I would recommend, if there's a communication, then somebody communicates. Maybe you need a liaison between both groups, whatever it is. I stand strongly this evening that I appreciate everything the town does. I love living here, and I just don't understand why a termination is necessary. I think a conversation needs to be had. And if that's happened, then I would like to be supplied with specific reasons as to why a volunteer group is being terminated when you can't get people to volunteer for things just in general. So I thank you for the opportunity to speak, and thank you.
Hi, my name is Ben Wright. I'm 4 Gifford Lane. So it seems like there's a lot of work, around Chelmsford to kind of keep our, spaces looking great and enjoyable to live, to kind of to enjoy, like spending your time there, walking your dog, hiking with your kids or whatever. It seems that although, like from the meeting recording last week or last time, it seemed like there was certain things that maybe weren't being handled by costs that maybe that the commission would have liked. I guess I'd like to ask to see if there's a way that maybe an amended MOU could be done, so that maybe if there's like a bandwidth problem that they couldn't get to all those spaces, that maybe an understanding could be made, because it seems that some of the work is better than none of the work done, and basically I feel that the town needs as much help as it needs to kind of keep these spaces, maintained, especially since we don't really have, the budget to pay the staff. So I think that we need to kind of make sure that we keep the relationships with the people that are volunteering, and be able to work with them to see what they're able to contribute, and not just necessarily shut down the MOU just because they're not able to deliver everything that was asked for. So I guess I'm just really just asking for perhaps a little more, working something out. Maybe there's another alternative like arrangement that could be made with costs. That's it. Thank you.
I'm Laura Levine Lucas. I live on 33 Slate Road, and I didn't think about what to say, but I've been here for 6 years, I think now, maybe 7. My husband and I, we have an almost 6-year-old, and we're outdoorsy, and I see costs out on the conservation parcels around town all the time. And I don't actually know of any other, we have volunteered with them, like we only know about things we can do to help the community because they've told us and we've participated. My daughter got to paint fences at Sunny Meadow last summer. And my husband helps with the coulas pulling bittersweet and stuff. And what else? Well, we've also been to the Thanksgiving ground forest, the walk, the Thanksgiving walk, and the Stone Forts walk, which we didn't try most recently because I'm not sure my daughter could make it. The first time she didn't make it very far. But we made it to the first fort, which was very exciting. But anyway, all this stuff, and I've never seen any other organizations doing anything in Chelmsford in the open spaces. But I see costs all the time. And there was one other thing. Oh, the pumpkin armada is really, people love that. I think that's all I had to say.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm Steve Mayotte, 70 Dunstable Road. At one time, I was essentially COS's executive officer, except that there is no such title. Years ago, COS came up with the idea of having someone monitor each open space, and the job title and description were in the name, Steward and Stewardship. As we'll see in a presentation later this evening, we still have that. COS encouraged a group of people who were handy with chainsaws, people who could design, build, and repair things, and people with heavy machinery to become involved. And know what? They still are. It's a tremendous legacy, and yet it's time for a new way forward. Over time, COS has lost the plot. Doing has been replaced by talking about doing. Facebook has been confused with reality. As seen on Facebook, COS seems like an enormous operation. You'd be forgiven if you thought that there was an executive board or a group of directors providing strategic guidance, financial oversight, or coordination with town officials. Surely, after 20 years, the number of active members must be very large. If you thought any of that, you'd actually be mistaken. The number of members active since the beginning is 2. The number of people willing and able to complete work at more than one site is also a very small number. That actual number was never published, and we saw that again today, actually, on Facebook. But a good guess would be 3 or 4. There are a number of groups in town besides COS maintaining the open space. Anyway, with COS, there is no executive board, there are no directors, there is no financial oversight, and so I support the committee's action of April 22nd. Thank you.
Joanne Stanway, 6 Lantern Lane. I'm a co-founder of the Chelmsford Open Space Stewardship. I didn't really like what Steve Mayotte just said at all. Number one, at no time was he ever an executive officer of this 20-year volunteer group. There's never been a board. There's never been any kind of treasurers or anything else. Guys, this is volunteers for 20 years, have given 50 hours a week, perhaps, of time, plus money out of their own pockets to build stewardship in the town. We've had testimony from people talking about what the open spaces used to look like and what they look like now, and all of the free community events that we've done. We heard Pumpkin Armada, we heard Day Before Thanksgiving Walk. We've had multiple other events that you're aware of that have built stewardship. But I think, frankly, to look at the 20th year of COSS and the work that the stewards have done, and to say that the only thing that remains are 2 people that are getting any work done. You all have your faces in social media and are looking at Facebook. You know the number of events that occur all the time. It's not done by one person. It's not done by 2 people or 3 people. It's about people who just care about the community and are just doing volunteer work in the town. You're supposed to be smart, entrepreneurial adults At no point, there was another question about whether there was a conversation. There was never any invitation to have a conversation, and so the stewards have just plugged along and done work. There's been a lot of visibility, as is evidenced by the people who have talked tonight. It's just not nice. I hope that's a quote. If the Lowell Sun or any of the other media are watching this, I hope the quote is, "It's just not nice." Either the Conservation Commission or even the town of Chelmsford haven't approached this in a very kind way to look at volunteers that have given their time and have achieved so much, and you know they have. Just because it doesn't fit in a structure that you're comfortable with, there could have been a conversation. The thing that would have been wise to do would have been, hey, COSS, we would like to leverage your institutional knowledge. We'd like to leverage the relationships that you have with people in the community. We're pleased with all of the great work that you've done in town. We'd like to work together and make this better so that we could join forces. There's nothing wrong with evolving. There's nothing wrong with changing. There's nothing wrong with making it better. No one has had a conversation with Phil Stanway about this, not one person. And the reason why there's so much that's on Facebook is for visibility. And if that was also a concern and you didn't like it, rather than responding with snark, there could have been, hey, let's talk about how we can communicate everything that the town, the stewardship, Conservation Commission, Land Conservation Trust, and everyone else, let's figure out how we can have a strategy for keeping the community informed and getting all of this work done. I'm glad I got to say that, because I've been frustrated for years by all of this. It's nasty. I don't like it. It's snarky. And these are people that are just trying to do something positive in the community.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you very much. So I'll have a statement here. I think I'm speaking for the commission. I haven't run this by everyone. The decision to discontinue the memorandum of understanding with costs was not done hastily. The issues we had with costs had accumulated over time, and it eventually made it difficult to get our work done, and the negatives were outweighing the positives. The costs MOU applied only to a subset of Conservation Commission properties and not all Chelmsford open space properties. It's actually only 8 properties that we're talking about. Sunny Meadow is not included, Hart Pond is not included, it's only 8 properties. We recognize that for the active reservations covered by the MOU, as well as the other conservation sites that the MOU was not covering, we had full coverage of these sites with volunteers, many volunteers who are not part of costs and are not, and they will continue to support these sites. So if you're concerned that the sites will not be maintained, we have a plan that we're going to go through later in the meeting. Towards the end of the meeting, we have a plan that we will go through that has all of the sites that we are talking about in this MOU covered. We have had very little interaction with costs, especially in the last 4 to 5 years. Our last cost project proposal to the commission, I think I have this right, was 2019. Our last Eagle Scout project via costs was around 2021. I might be wrong on that, but it's probably pretty close to accurate. The termination of the MOU will not impact the ability of the existing volunteers, and it's a long list, to support those MOU sites going forward. Many, if not most of those volunteers, do not consider themselves to be members of COS. We will be talking about this new stewardship model later in our agenda. This isn't complicated. We're talking about maintaining trails. These are volunteers that just do the work. There remain other town sites and events, and many of those COS events are excellent, and I think they've been great over the years, and they can continue to happen. Nothing is stopping COS or any other organization in town from doing any kind of events in town on our properties. We have been doing this for years, many years. You make a request to our agent, David Kuntz, And we will review it, he will review it. If it's a big deal event, it might come to the commission and take 3 weeks. If it's something he can approve quickly, it'll probably get approved in a day or two. So the Thanksgiving walk, absolutely, can keep doing that. All of these events can continue to go. They were not part of the MOU. Those are wonderful events. I've been to all of them. I remember the Pumpkin Armada. I was there. But in the meantime, COS has refused for more than 10 years to attend any Conservation Commission meetings and work directly with us. We need to be able to work directly with the people in our meetings, with the volunteer group that supports the land under our responsibility. Posts on Facebook, we're done. We're done.
I can't address the
You
comments about the
cannot.
10 years.
You cannot.
Or
You are.
closing ad
We
hoc
are done.
paper.
I said we're done. I'm going to finish my talk, and then we're done. We're moving on. We have an agenda. We need to go. Posts on
It's untrue.
Facebook do not constitute working with conservation. Elected and appointed town boards and commissions are given strong guidance by town council to not engage in social media discussions. So we see a lot of posts that are attacking our work, and we can't respond. And it comes from COS. And we're very, very frustrated. And this has been years. My in-person interactions with Phil and email interactions in the past 3 years have often ended up in Facebook with his comments and his version of the story. I specifically asked him via email to correct some factually incorrect postings. He did not do it. We believe, as we all know, there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation on social media. You are not seeing the whole story. We believe that a new model for site management is needed. We're moving forward as we have a lot of work to accomplish in the area of land management. We are very happy with the number of volunteers that we have working on sites. I see many of them in here. Many of them in here next to you. They're here, and they're supporting our decision. I'm telling you right now. There's a lot of people in town supporting our decision. Anyone wishing to volunteer, I love to have volunteers. We're happy to have volunteers at our conservation sites. Please contact our agent, David, or any member of the commission. We are happy to have volunteers. We're happy to work with volunteers who support the mission of the Conservation Commission. We want to provide open space resources for our citizens. I 100% agree. I was out at 3 sites this morning before 6 o'clock this morning. We have wonderful conservation sites, and we have wonderful volunteers in town. But the picture you get is not the reality. We need to protect our natural resources, and we need to protect the habitat for the critters that live among us. Thank you very much. It's time to move on. We have another agenda. We have many agenda items, and we're going to move on right now. Okay. Request for determination of applicability for 1 Lakeside Avenue. This is Alicia Harper. The applicant is in the room, maybe, David, or on representative?
I saw her. Yes, there she is.
Okay. So do we have a notice,
Yes.
Chris?
Mr. Chairman, there is a legal notice. Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Chelmsford Wetlands Bylaw, Chapter 187, the Chelmsford Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing here at Room 204 at the Chelmsford Town Offices on Tuesday, May 13th, 2025, to consider the request for determination of applicability filed by property owner Alicia Harper for proposed work within 100-foot buffer zone to Hart Pond at 1 Lakeside Avenue, further identified as Assessors Parcel Map 124/Block 482/Lot 1. The project entails expansion of an existing attached deck. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chris. Can we hear about the project, please?
Hi, Alicia Harper. I purchased 1 Lakeside Avenue on Hart Pond in October. The existing deck that's off the side is, I don't know, like 3 by 4. It's very wobbly. I want to expand it, and as it's on the pond, I just wanted to go through the right steps to make sure that I was doing everything the right way. My father is a general contractor but lives in Ohio, so he's going to be assisting with it. I'm not going beyond the, I'm not going closer to the pond. I'm not expanding beyond the edge of the house. And I'm looking to do a 12, what did I do? 16 by 10 is what I decided to
Okay.
request.
Okay, David, do you, I think you went to the site?
I did, yes.
Comments?
Sure. So it's as Alicia just mentioned, it's not going any closer to the lake than what's already been disturbed. I think the main concern here is, and I spoke a little bit about this with Alicia, is just if there's digging that needs to be done for the footings, and I don't know, have you made a decision on that yet?
Yeah, there are 3 footings in the drawings that my father put together. It's poured concrete, but I've been talking to David about it, and I found a company that could drill the helical pilings instead, so they're coming out on the 21st to do an estimate for that. So that's the plan. Unless something egregious happens, in which case I would implement erosion control if I had to move forward with
So I don't, if the helical piles are being used, I don't think erosion control is needed. But I think just in case that doesn't work out, I just think just to be on the safe side, putting a condition in the determination of applicability, just to say that if any digging is done, erosion control needs to be installed prior to the start of it, and that I need to go out and inspect it. And I've spoken to Alicia about all of this as well. So I think that's the only thing in my mind.
Okay. Any questions? John, you have any questions?
No, I think the helicoils are the best
Okay.
route you can go.
Okay.
Minimal, and it's done quick.
Yeah, it works out better for me anyway with coordinating my father coming up from Ohio. That way that can be done ahead of time and he can just get to work. So.
Okay.
Bill?
Yeah.
I'm good.
Okay, great. Mark?
Nope. The helicoils are the way to go. It just depends what your resources are. They're not cheap.
Yeah, I have Erickson Foundation coming out. I don't know. I'd rather just be
Okay,
smooth,
but if
yeah.
you don't go that route,
Mhm.
what David said must be done.
Yep. I'll work with him the whole way if something else happens. So.
Chris?
Yeah, I'm good with the project.
All right.
Okay.
This is an open meeting, so are there any questions, any comments from the public? We're open to any I assume butter notices went out and all that?
Those aren't required for
not required,
determining an
right?
RDA,
Okay.
yes.
It's a -3? It's a -3?
I think this is a -3.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'll
Yes.
take a motion if we have no more further discussion.
You have to close the hearing.
I move to close the hearing, Mr. Chairman.
Motion from Chris.
Second.
Second from Bill. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Close the meeting, okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the project with a -3 determination, with the condition, as mentioned before from our agent, that we have, before there's any digging, that we have an erosion controls put in place, and also the opportunity for our agent to go out and check the site out first. And as you heard, we certainly like the helical piles as well.
Okay. Just a quick question. Should I have you come out and look at it after the helical piles are installed, or is that?
That certainly wouldn't hurt.
Okay.
Okay.
That's the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Motion from Chris.
Second.
Second from Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Very good. Good luck.
So
you,
I'll
gentlemen.
let you know when the paperwork is ready to pick up.
Okay. Perfect.
Sounds like a
Thank you.
good project.
Appreciate it.
All right, that's first regulatory hearing. Next regulatory hearing, we are now looking at the notice of intent for the town of Chelmsford for Freeman Lake, and this is Courtney. Hello, Courtney. This is town of DPW, town of Chelmsford DPW. Courtney is representing the town, and we have a notice. So, Chris,
Mr. Chairman,
thing.
Mr. Chairman, pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Chelmsford Wetlands Bylaw, Chapter 187, Chelmsford Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing here in Room 204 at the town offices on Tuesday, May 13th, 2025, to consider the notice of intent filed by the town of Chelmsford on behalf of property owner Commonwealth of Massachusetts for proposed alteration of land under water bodies and waterways at Freeman Lake. The project entails mechanical harvesting as part of the aquatic management program at Freeman Lake for the control of nuisance and invasive aquatic vegetation. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chris. All right. Hello, Courtney. Can you tell us about your project?
Hi, yes, I'm Courtney Thompson. I'm the stormwater engineer at the DPW. The town is seeking approval to include mechanical harvesting as part of the aquatic management program at Freeman Lake. The proposed project has been filed as an ecological restoration limited project and will protect the interest of the Wetland Protection Act by controlling non-native nuisance species, improving fish habitat, improving water quality, and slowing pond eutrophication. Freeman Lake is approximately 77 acres and is located entirely in Chelmsford. This water body is primarily bordered by small woodlands and residential developments. Freeman Lake watershed consists of both a local watershed and a much larger watershed associated with the inlet diversion from Stony Brook. In 2023, the town hired a consultant, TRC, and they began, or I think we hired them in 2022, but in 2023, they began a comprehensive assessment of Freeman Lake. A quantitative survey conducted in June of 2024 by TRC revealed the presence of 12 native and 3 non-native invasive species. The TRC study documented that approximately 19.2 acres of the lake contained aquatic plant coverage, with the majority of the vegetation covering more than 75% of the lake bottom. Non-native Eurasian milfoil, fanwort, and water chestnut impose negative impacts, largely due to their dense foliage. TRC reported that most aquatic plant beds were characterized by biovolumes exceeding 50% of the water column. The excessive plant cover can reduce fish density and has the ability to interfere with oxygen exchange within the lake. The competitive invasive vegetative growth also reduces light for benthic organisms and a healthy assemblage of native vegetation. The conditions described in the TRC report are not conducive to a healthy aquatic ecosystem and require management to improve water quality and habitat. Accordingly, this NOI proposes to include mechanical harvesting as part of the aquatic management program at Freeman Lake to improve the ecological function and value of Freeman Lake. A separate NOI has been submitted to initiate an integrated management program at Freeman Lake, and that is scheduled to be on the agenda for next Concom's meeting. So, mechanical harvesting, which involves cutting and or pulling aquatic plants with minimal disturbance to the lake bed from a specially equipped watercraft, can be an effective short-term approach to control plant biomass. This method can be useful for scenarios where a reduction in biomass is advantageous, even though it does not result in long-term control of the targeted plant beds. At Freeman Lake, the harvested plant material will be transferred to a trailer and then stockpiled and composted at the Public Works Storage Facility located at 40 Swain Road, away from wetlands and water bodies. All the removed vegetative material will be disposed of in accordance with the state and federal regulations, which typically would just involve letting it compost away from wetlands and water bodies. Vegetative volume will be tracked for management purposes, but it is anticipated that less than 100 cubic yards of sediment will be disturbed or removed as part of this harvesting activity. And since the volume is below the 100 cubic yards, the 401 water quality certification threshold is not required, or the 401 WQC is not required since it's below the threshold. No significant alteration to the wetlands resource area will occur as a result of this proposed mechanical harvesting, and instead the resource area will be enhanced by reducing non-native invasive Eurasian milfoil, water chestnut, and fanwort. This will sequentially improve water quality and wildlife habitat and reduce or slow down the eutrophication at Freeman Lake.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Courtney. Nice job. David, do you have any commentary?
Just a couple of questions, Courtney. So how are the locations and the extent of the areas to be harvested or cut? How are they determined?
So we didn't specify in the NOI what areas the harvesting will occur in, because every year a pre-season, early season vegetative survey will be conducted, and the results of that survey combined with our budget for the year will determine where the treatment will occur. We're hoping to implement this mid-June. And one of the other, we'll talk about it more in next meeting, but one of the other big problems that really we could get ahead of at Freeman Lake is the water chestnut. It's a newer invasive at the lake, and it requires either mechanical harvesting or hand harvesting. And so one way that we're able to fit mechanical harvesting into our budget this year is to trying to time up the first round of water chestnut harvesting with the mechanical harvester. So ideally, to remove the ideal amount of this dense vegetation, our contractor, C&D Underwater, they suggested 5 or 6 days with the harvester. We have it in the budget for 2 days. So really any reduction of this thick biomass will help. It's kind of a test run this year. And so we'll be targeting areas with dense vegetation and water chestnut. And then later in the year, we'll do a second round of hand pulling of the water chestnut, but that's the way we're able to make it work financially. So it will be kind of the southern portion. We won't get, really where it's too low or acting as like a filter. We will have to hand harvest some of that area. But that area, there's been another area where water chestnut was identified along the side of the lake, and then in the beach area. Those will be our top targets. But again, I think later this week or next week, Water and Wetland is performing a vegetation survey, and that will be used to really make our list. Our harvester contractor also has not been out. This is our first time using them. So they've not been out there, and depending on the size of the lake, the density of the vegetation, all that will determine how quickly the harvester harvests.
Right, okay.
So we'll just have to kind of have our priority list. We're not going to get to all of it. It's just to reduce some, because there is concern with fragmentation because of the invasives that we have. Now, there is, the TRC report suggested a lot of different tools that we could use in an integrated approach. They actually weren't super highly recommended mechanical harvesting because of fragmentation, but after talking with them at this point, Freeman Lake's in such a dire condition that you really can't make it much worse. So, and supposedly these new types of harvesters, they greatly reduce fragmentation, and there's been some pushback from the community to try harvesting. So that's why we're at a point right now where we can really try it with no harm, no foul. If it does reduce fragmentation like it claims to, then great, we can add that to our toolbox. But if it doesn't, we're in a pretty dire situation anyway. So.
Okay.
So I think you answered my second question, Courtney. So the proposed plan is to use the mechanical harvester for only one session.
Yeah,
this
2
season.
days.
Just the only thing that might vary a little bit is 2 days or 3 days or whatever, but maybe later on in the year, or maybe probably later on in the year, then for the water chestnut, do a manual pulling.
So we've had a lot of volunteer enthusiasm about a water chestnut hand harvesting. Freeman Lake's a really big water body, so we'll still have plenty of water chestnut for volunteers to help us hand pull.
Got a big crowd tonight.
Yeah, and we do want to have it in two different events, because you want to get it right at the beginning when it starts to bloom, and then you want to get it after some have gone to seed, is my understanding. So a mid-June with the eco harvester to get rid of some of that other Eurasian milfoil fanwort biomass and that water chestnut. That's how we're able to make it work financially this year. So then we can focus more energy on that second round of hand harvesting. And like I said, at the inlet, we might need to do a much lesser hand harvesting than if we didn't have the mechanical harvester coming in, because we might not be able to get. I think it's shallow down there. And
that's all I had for now.
Chris, do you have? Let's ask the rest of the commission.
No, I mean, I'm certainly glad to see this project coming forward, and it's a good thing. And I'd rather see us try this harvesting approach first before having to resort to chemicals. So I'd rather see how this goes. Do we have any idea how this similar type of efforts have done in other towns and communities in the area? I mean, what's the prognosis, I guess, of success or not success?
So even with the harvester, ideally the harvester will be a tool that we can use in an integrated management system moving forward. Really with just cost and being able to like make progressive steps like that will carry over from year to year. In also introducing herbicides into a management program is almost always going to be ideal. It's pretty widely used throughout the state. And you really get mixed reports on how well this handles. It really comes down to the fragmenting. If you get, the harvester contractors will tell you, oh, this new eco-harvesting, it barely fragments at all. And then like almost anyone else you talk to, they're like, there's still a good amount of fragmentation. So if we started implementing herbicide treatments as well, and we actually got 2 steps ahead of it and actually started having improvement, we started working on, a little bit every year, then it might not make sense to use the harvester because you might be fragmenting and propagating it. Now, that's down the line. Even the budget and the plan for the next couple of years at least would just be really spot treatments of herbicides. We don't have the funding to do like a whole lake sonar that would really give us some carryover. So it's certainly reasonable to assume that if this works, it could be part of the tools that we use moving forward, definitely.
All right, well, thanks, Courtney. Yeah, I'm good, Mr. Chair.
Mark?
It seems like you're exploring all the options.
Yes.
And I'm glad for that, because I don't really want to put chemicals in if we don't have to.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a try for the best and hope what you find out is going to be good.
Yeah.
So, no, I'm in favor of everything you're doing. It sounds great, and good luck with it. It's going to be a process.
Yeah. Yep.
Bill?
I'm happy you're doing it, trying to do it too. What areas did you say you're going to start in? Is it near the beach area, or is it?
So the priorities will be determined once we get the early season vegetative survey, which is scheduled for, I think, this week or next week. The beach will certainly be a priority area. This project and the one that's coming next meeting, the main goal is ecological restoration, but there is obviously also safety concerns with some of these vegetation in highly used areas. So the beach will certainly be one of the top priorities to try to get in those 2 days. It also is going to focus on areas where the water chestnut has been observed or is observed in the treatment survey. And then after that, it will be based on that pre-treatment survey where there's really thick growth that we can try to really make a dent on. Because at this point, just removing some of that really thick biomass is a step in the right direction. But it's kind of like mowing your lawn. It isn't going to make any. Next year, it's going to come back just as bad as it did this. Like, obviously, it depends on the rainfall and things like that. Every year is a little different, but it's not making cumulative improvements.
Well, I support it, so good luck.
Thank you.
John?
Yep, Bill asked the question I was going to ask, if you're going to start at the beach.
Yeah, the beach will definitely be an area.
Focus.
Yeah, there's definitely significant growth there. So it provides ecological restoration, improves the ecology in that area, and also helps with, the safety aspect of it.
I think it's worth a try instead of using chemicals, so.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be discussed with more next meeting, but it definitely is intended as in addition to the other components. But we wanted to submit it separately in case, hopefully it'll be easier to get it through, and it's something we can implement this season if the other one hits roadblocks.
Good. What was the name of the contractor?
C&D Underwater, I believe it's called C&D.
Okay.
C&D water,
Something like
or
that,
underwater,
okay.
something like that. Yeah.
All right, this is a public hearing, so we are open to any comments from the public. If anyone from the public would like to come up and comment on this, we'll give you a couple of minutes. So make sure you give your name and your address.
Hi there. Excuse me. Hi there. Peter Severance, 48 Middlesex Street. In general, clearly the water chestnut is a critical issue that will, I'm glad to see is being addressed, and I will help with that. And the mechanical harvesting is a plus over chemical treatment. In principle, I don't have any problems with this notice of intent. The problem I'm having is the report. The report suffers from some bad data, which I had alerted DPW to, data that failed to meet the protocols that were put in place decades ago by EPA and DEP.
So you're referring to the TRC report?
TRC report.
Thank you. Okay.
And I know I'm trying to head off you guys thinking the TRC report justifies an ecological restoration project, and it doesn't. There's bad data in there. I don't need to go into that here, but it throws out some data that shouldn't be in the report and some of the conclusions. And I'll make sure David has those. I can describe them to you now, or I'll make sure David has them. A lot of the narrative in there is pretty inflammatory and not representative of reality. But let's start with qualifications as an ecological restoration project, because one of the, when you're doing ecological restoration, it should be ecological restoration, not recreational restoration or perceptual restoration. It's got to be, what is it about the ecology of the lake which is going to be cured by the treatment, okay? So one of the things you look at is eutrophication. Is the lake eutrophied, and will, the treatment solve that? TRC, using its data, including one bad data point, concludes that the lake is in a eutrophic state. But if you use Mass DEP's criteria that they use in their biannual assessment of the water bodies and rivers of the state, it's fine. It doesn't violate any of their criteria at all, and I'll send that data to David. I can go over all those criteria and the value. If you have the TRC report with you, I could go over that with you. But where I think you'll run into a problem is, being able to show the benefit of the treatment over the do-nothing case, okay? If we get into chemicals, we're talking about wiping out virtually all of the plant life in the lake, which is a really drastic thing. Plants are ecosystem engineers in a lake. It's not just that they produce oxygen. An interesting thing about oxygen, Stony Brook inflow, if you look at the TRC data, was in the summertime was below the DEP criteria. It was below 5, it was 3. It was really, really bad. But the oxygen in the lake was pretty healthy. It was 7, 8, whatever. That's because of the plants in the lake. We're oxygenating the lake, even though the source of water, or what we assume is the primary source of water to the lake, had virtually no oxygen in it. That's due to the plants. The plants are the superstructure of the habitat of the lake. It's not just the lake bottom, but every single leaf surface, all the foliage surfaces are part of the food web, the ecology of the food web of the lake. Starting off with biofilms or epiphytes, which are bacterial and algal communities, which are harvesting nutrients and dissolved organic matter from the water column. And they live right on the stems and the leaves of the plants. And it doesn't matter if it's a non-native or a native plant. And those things are harvested, the biofilms are harvested by snails and macroinvertebrates and fish, herbivorous fish, okay? And that transforms that plant material based on nutrients in the water column, and we have a phosphorus problem in in Freeman Lake. And it incorporates those nutrients in that that material into the food web, into the food chain, capturing carbon, et cetera. If you wipe out the plants, you are wiping out all of the habitat of virtually all of the macroinvertebrates except for the benthic macroinvertebrates in the lake, okay? That means you're not going to have food for the fish. A lot of those are aquatic insects which emerge, and if you were out on Freeman Lake last week, you would have seen the swallows, the swifts, the flycatchers swooping over the lake all the time, just feeding them, even in the deep hole by the dam, which is supposed to be anaerobic.
Yeah,
Okay,
so can we get to a point here?
the point is, it will be, I believe, it will be very hard to show that there will be an effective benefit from wiping out the plant community for what might be 2 years. And, you know, the invasives are not going away, okay? They're just not. I mean, look at Hart Pond. They're always coming back. I'll wrap it up there.
So you are talking about the chemicals, Peter.
That was my point of order.
Right.
It appears that your focus is on the chemicals, which is really going to be the next.
Well,
area.
it's really, right, it's really don't take the TRC report as gospel. It's got problems, its conclusions are wrong, and I can demonstrate that. So please don't base your order of conditions, letting the harvesting go forward based on the TRC report.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just comment on that?
Yeah, David, go ahead.
Quickly. So Courtney could speak to this better than I can, and I'll let her respond if she wants to. But I believe in the notice of intent, it specifically itemizes, you know, how this satisfies the requirements for an ecological restoration limited project, and what the specific benefits will be of removing the invasive vegetation. Am I correct, Courtney?
Sure, let me pull that up. I do have some other information about that as
I don't know,
well.
probably don't know off the top of your head what page that is out of the 315.
Yeah, I know. So. I'm just trying to see if I can find the exact language. But I think that this is the language, and I do have additional comment too, but the objective of the project is to control invasive and nuisance species. Managing densities of invasive species will typically not adversely affect wildlife habitat and will not negatively impact other interests of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act. No significant alteration to wetland resource areas will occur as a result of the proposed management program. In fact, resource areas will be enhanced by controlling the nuisance plant growth, and proposed management activities are consistent with the guidelines in the following documents, which is the final generic environmental impact report, which I know they're working on a new one, but the guidance for aquatic plant management in lakes and ponds, and the practical guide to lake management in Massachusetts. Mechanical harvesting techniques techniques proposed are approved under the Massachusetts Environmental Protection Act, process that was approved in 2004 with the issuance of the FGEIR and the practical guide to lake and pond management in Massachusetts. These approaches do not require individual MEPA review, but also, just for the record, I guess, no one is suggesting turning Freeman Lake into a swimming pool. None of our proposed activities want to remove all the vegetation from the lake. That is not anyone's goal. The goal of both parts of the management plan is to just get rid of some of that excessive biomass. It was also reported, which, I mean, you know, we hired, in response to, back in 2002, when we first brought this project forth.
22.
Oh, yeah, sorry. 2000, it feels like 2002. 2022, when this, you know, first was this started, you know, we listened to concerns from the abutters, from the community, and that's what drove us to get the a third-party experts at TRC to do this study. So even if that's not enough, the people at TRC writing the study, doing the study, they're the pond and lake management experts. There will be a representative from TRC at the next hearing when we're doing the more involved NOI. But it was told to me too by the scientist over there who's been in charge of it, that the bottom of the lake during the summer, he said he didn't, it's kind of a term that gets people, feeling a sort of way, so he didn't include it in the report, but he said it would have been accurate to write in the report that the bottom of Freeman Lake during the summer is a dead zone. There's less than 2 milligrams per liter of oxygen in like July and August in the bottom of the lake in that summer. I'm looking, all we can do in managing anything like this is looking to the experts and working with the best available knowledge we have available to us. And according to TRC, they do not perform the treatments. They have no horse in this race. The pond is not healthy. It's in a eutrophic state. And moreover than that, DEP and I believe EPA, they define these invasive plants as an impairment to the lake, period. Like, we could go into it, all the other negative impacts that come along with them, but reducing some of these invasives so more natives can get a threshold, give them a chance, and have natives where there is competition, is an improvement to the ecology of the lake. They are an impairment, these invasive plant growth that was running rampant at Freeman. So,
David, any more?
No more comments.
Can I make one quick response?
I'll give you one quick response.
The dead zone at the bottom of the lake is natural in all lakes of a depth of 20, 25 feet. That's called the hypolimnion. It is a matter of the temperature differential between the warmer upper water, which is lighter, and the colder, denser water. So, and that is not the entire bottom of the lake. That is 83% of the lake volume is normally oxygenated. It's just like 15, 17% in that hole. That's all I'll say.
Okay, thank you. Any other?
My understanding is that lake isn't much more than 12 feet at any pond anyways.
Okay.
That's the average.
Well, the deepest part is 26. The average isn't.
But the average is 26?
No.
Deepest is
Oh, yeah,
26.
right,
Deepest is
right.
26.
That was my point.
Yes, sir. You tried to get up twice, I think.
I need to move. I'm Alan Beebe, 28 Aberdeen Road, North Chelmsford. So I have a question about the beach area. How far do the little buoys that you put out for the swim area extend?
Courtney, can you come to the podium, please? Thank you.
I'm not sure of the exact dimensions of the swim area. I'd have to look into that, but.
Okay, so my question is, right now I have some underwater video that I took the whole.
I've seen it. You shared some of it in the past.
Okay, well, I have new footage of the beach area specifically from knee-deep to waist-deep water, and there's already a significant growth plus last year's die-off. So the question I have is, what is the minimum depth that the eco-harvester can handle?
I've been told that the eco-harvester specifically can harvest in water as low as 1 foot.
Okay.
So it can get pretty close to that shore.
What's the maximum depth it could go to?
I'm not sure. It has a drum that rotates in front of it and pulls down. I think it could handle the 26 foot. Well, there's also not plants growing at the 26 feet, so.
No, I'm talking like 8, 10, 12 feet.
Yeah, I think that it can handle the area where
the beach is.
Well, and the other parts of the pond with excessive invasive growth as well, or the lake, sorry.
So the point is this mechanical harvesting would be very beneficial for the swim area that the town has. So I'm hoping that I can get new footage after this first pass So for the next session on the, what is it, the 23rd, 27th?
2 weeks, yeah, yeah.
Well, we need to talk about.
Will people, will we, the public, be able to show underwater video or other kind of footage of what the current status is?
We could possibly, we could consider it, yeah.
If
All right.
if you can email it to me,
Well, these are like 10 gigabytes and,
can you put them on?
yeah, we can make
Dropbox
arrangements
or
to get them.
file share
CTM
system?
could load it.
We can try to find a way to make that work.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So I'm not here to certainly rebuttal you. I just wanted to say that one.
sorry,
this-
can you
Oh, I'm sorry, this is
restate your
Karen,
name?
Karen
Thank you.
Krauthimmel.
Thank you very much.
Can you spell it again? 12 Mansfield Drive. So growing up in lakes, I'm a rower. I've been in many different water areas, but this is not a brand new treatment or to kind of mow down the lakes. I'm kind of surprised that this town has not done it sooner. As far as recreational, I do live down here, so I don't swim up. I don't have my kids up in Freeman Lake, but from what it sounds like, it's covered in seaweed. Again, New Jersey lakes were covered in seaweed, even though they would treat it just this way, but it always grows back. I grew up at the pond. Yes, my dad uses an herbicide. There's plenty of fish, huge fish in that little pond, and it always grows back. So there's definitely chemicals that don't kill everything off. I think it's long overdue. I think we're kind of starting and, kind of good luck with it, and if we don't spend tons and tons of money. But at least to get the swimming area, from what I understand, would be a wonderful thing. But that's all I have to say.
Swimming areas.
Wanda Dunn, 60 Willis Drive. You were asking, if I go on, just tell me shut up, I'm done. cdseaweed.com is what you were looking for the name of the Eco Harvester machine. So I just wanted to ask Courtney, for water wetlands, are we paying them to take out the water chestnut or not?
We will be paying them to do a second round, and we might be a short first round if we're not able to get it all around from that inlet area, because we don't want to remove all the vegetation on that inlet, and I think it gets kind of marshy there, is my understanding. So we might need, a day or half a day with them for that area, and then we will need them for a second round after the seeds drop, is the term I've been told. So later on for additional hand harvesting of the water chestnut.
Thank you.
Okay. So I have questions. Obviously, I've been wanting an Eco Harvester machine to start to do the lake. Who's going to determine whether the harvester works or not? Is the first question. Is it going to be water and wetlands? Because they want to put herbicides in. Fragmentation is not something that you should be trying to sell this more, because fragmentation happens with every boat that goes out there with an electric motor with their propellers. It's a given. I'm not going to go around and push for people to just start paddling, going back to paddles, and not having their electric motor. That's not what I'm looking for. But an Eco Harvester machine works so slowly, and where you have people in their boats and their pontoon boats, they're buzzing around the lake. They're doing the same thing. I've watched this lake for 40 years, and like I had said in past meetings, the weeds have not moved on the shoreline. They are in the center of the lake, which TRC did not even determine in their report. So that's, to me, is like an unfinished report, because they did not document any weeds at all through the middle of the lake. They only concentrated on the shoreline, which half of that shoreline is privately owned. So TRC marked 2 areas to get rid of weeds, and 2 of them are privately owned. So that should be off the table, unless you talk to those owners. Find out who they are and if they actually want the machine there or if they want herbicides there. Who's determining the highly used area? What are you basing that on, for the Eco Harvester machine? I guess our push from people that I've talked to is the center of the lake is the most prominent of the Eurasian milfoil with fanwort mixed in. So I just want to keep that in mind. And as far as cost, an eco harvester machine. You didn't give us any cost of how much. You said we only have them for 2 days. You didn't tell us what the cost is going to be. And I kind of would like to know that, because the cost of herbicides, you're pushing the harvester machine, but yet you're saying the herbicides that Water and Wetlands going to promote, in a couple weeks, the cost for herbicides, which from Hart Pond, goes into thousands of dollars. I'm trying to look long-term, where an eco-harvester machine, you can start slowly getting the weeds that we need to attract, to get out of the lake, and then you can go to Dash, which is a diver-assisted. That's cheaper. I'm trying to look at long-term, instead of every year like Hart Pond has. I've got the list. I've talked to people at Hart Pond, the thousands of dollars for every time they put in dicot, every time they've put in, they had to put in copper salt, copper for cyanobacteria. That's $8,000 per time that they're putting into that lake. You've approved $25,000 for them for this year, for Water and Wetlands to do a study on that lake as well. So if Hart Pond's getting $20,000 to $25,000 for this year, how much is Freeman Lake going to get? So I guess I'm trying to save the town money in the long run. Okay, go on. Sorry, I will stop there.
So we've definitely done extensive, comparing of everything. The eco harvester is $5,000 a day to run. And if we're just using eco harvesting or mechanical harvesting, we will never get to a point where we can initiate Dash, which is also very, very cost prohibitive in a lake this size, because eco harvesting or any kind of mechanical harvesting is like cutting the grass. We will never make progressive steps that build year after year. So we have similar budgets for Hart Pond and Freeman Lake. This study that we did as a response to public input that started 3 years ago was over $60,000. So $10,000 for Eco Harvester this year, then the money to create and submit 2 NOIs and have the TRC follow up. Hopefully we're able to do we will be doing the hand harvesting of water chestnut. I believe that the budgets are very, very similar. And Hart Pond had the $60,000 study on top of that. Did you have any other question that I'm missing? There's a lot.
TRC, did you ever ask them why they didn't?
Yeah, so it's really unknown, I guess, exactly why they didn't show the weeds in the middle. I know that there was an administrative or some employee, like one of the employees that was running the project, he left for a different opportunity, and so there was a handover there. But really, in my opinion, like we don't have, overall, it's a very informative study, more informative than any other projects of this type. It's more than what any other similar project I've ever heard of has done to get information like this. And what I hear from that is that there's more weeds than what the TRC report even reported. So yeah, sure, I'm not sure why that was missed or how that was missed, but it doesn't really change the big picture results, which are that we hired water body experts to evaluate this water body, and everyone else wants to act like they're an expert, but at the end of the day, I think the town has to listen to the experts that we hired, the qualified experts who tell us, if we do nothing, this pond's just going to deteriorate worse and worse, and
Okay.
So.
Any more questions from the commission? Anyone else in the public? All right. Oh, we do have.
We got one more.
Hello, my name is Dylan Shank, 83 Willis Drive, and I am in huge support of this project. I've lived on the lake my entire 19 years of living, and as I've gotten older, it's just gotten worse. I feel like when I was a kid, it wasn't as bad, and then something switched and it just got almost unusable. And I understand it's an ecology issue and not like I can't figure out the word, like a residential issue, but to a point it does come to that. When you have a lake like this with residential nearby, it's a selling point. And if we want more people in Chelmsford, if they come and tour these houses and see a lake filled with disgusting seaweed, no one's going to want to live there. And not to mention, people come to Varney Park and then go spend money at local businesses. If the lake's gross, no one's going to want to come do that. And when the whole issue with when the project with Hart Pond happened, I was like, oh, I really hope they come and do that for us as well. And to hear that this project is actually in motion is really, really amazing to hear. And if anyone disagrees with the TRC report, I implore you to come out to Freeman Lake and swim across it and see how many times you get your legs wrapped up by weeds. It's an issue. It needs to be handled because it's getting unusable.
Okay.
And that is my statement.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming in. All right, then I think we are complete.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we close the hearing.
Yep.
So the hearing really has to be continued, in my opinion, because we have not received comments from DEP.
Oh, correct, right.
And those, you don't know how involved, how complex those are going to be. So they need to wait for that. I also suggest that since next week's meeting or next meeting is going to be devoted to the other notice of intent, that this notice of intent be continued to the June 11th meeting, because I think to have them both in the same meeting, I think potentially could go on for hours, literally.
Okay.
So that would
how does that impact your schedule?
So ideally, we'd want the harvester out there mid-June. So I don't know if that's going to mess things up. I don't know if we're already talking about everything, if we just rip the Band-Aid off or what, or if we try to do the other one in June. But I don't.
Personally, Mr. Chair, I mean, I'd like to move this thing. I don't see any opposition, frankly, to the harvesting approach, and I'd kind of like to get it going as soon as we can. So I know we've got, as Mr. Coons points out, we do need to get those comments from DEP for sure, but.
Well, then you certainly, you can continue to the next meeting, but, you know, I think the whole meeting will be potentially devoted to.
But I don't want to do that. I absolutely do not want to rehash everything we did today again. So, I mean, if we come back next time, I'd like to just kind of, do we have our DEP comments or not, and not go through a full, hour or so of public input. Again, because a lot of the comments tonight, frankly, were really more focused, I think, towards the issues around the chemicals uses, which is fine, I understand, and the report. But if we come back quickly, but that's, again, just my thoughts.
David, do you anticipate significant DEP comment?
Well, I don't want to get into it too much now. Courtney is very familiar with the possibility, and maybe she has a better sense of this than I do, but there's this question of whether it's going to require a water quality certification permit from a DEP, and I gather that depends on the amount of dredge material or plant material to be removed. It's not needed if it's under 100 cubic yards. On the other hand, that's cumulative. If it's 25 yards 4 years in a row, then it does hit that threshold. So maybe you can.
So yeah, I've spoken with David Wong, who is in charge of that program, and I'm confident that the project will not disturb 100 cubic yards of soil. I've done calculations based off of best estimates. Honestly, if it gets triggered as a dredging project and they don't accept that, then I don't know if we'd even have the resources to move forward with it. So I don't know if it's worth just, if we're able to close it contingent on the comments or something, or whatever you want to do. But I'm really confident that the comment will probably say, confirm that this doesn't require this, and we will be tracking just for management process, managing the project. But I am very confident that we will not hit that 100 cubic yard threshold.
So if I understand this right, if we continue it to the next meeting and the DEP comments are minimal, we can probably close it very quickly.
I would think so. I personally wouldn't see any.
And if they're not, then we have a bigger problem anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chris, does that sound right to you?
Yeah.
And that maybe we do continue it until the next
I
meeting?
would withdraw my motion to close, because we can't do that, as Mr. Coons pointed out, but I would amend my motion to be a motion to continue to our next meeting of May 27th to allow the DEP comments to come in. And if we have them, great. We can hopefully have a quick meeting on a hearing on that and close it. If they're not in, well, then we're going to have to kick it out to a further meeting.
We'll have to, like, game time decision the week before or, a few days before, depending on what we see. I think that works for everybody?
Yeah. Yeah. And both NOIs were submitted similarly, and they have the same agent.
At DEP?
Yeah, whatever.
Okay, yeah.
So chances are, I don't know, fingers crossed, it will be all,
Okay.
both of them or none of them.
So why don't I'll take a motion then to continue to the next meeting.
Yeah, so moved.
Motion from Chris?
Second.
Second from Bill. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. So the motion passes to continue the mechanical harvester hearing until next meeting on the 27th, where we expect to also have the herbicide NOI as well. And thank you. Thank you, everyone, for all your inputs and work on this. It's got a lot of attention in town, and I know that, and appreciate the time put in by everyone. Okay, next on our agenda, this one's continued from April 8th. This is the NOI from George Allen and Son Construction, Old Westford Road, Assessors Parcel 38-129-1. Stephen Dresser of Dresser Williams and Way is representing the applicant. Are they online, David, or are they in the room?
I don't see them. I don't see Mr. Dresser here. I certainly did not receive a request for a continuance that I know of. Let me.
Hey, excellent.
Oh, there he is.
Right on cue.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Why don't you tell us about, let's see, well, actually, David, do you want to set this up maybe?
Sure. So the hearing was continued primarily for two reasons. One was to get a peer review of the wetland delineation, which was done. We do not have the final report yet on that. Some changes, I think some significant in the regulatory sense. Changes were made. Steve can go into those. We do have online Ron Stroessel from Oxbow Associates, who did, when I was on site reviewing the flagging. I believe the applicant's consultant was also participated in that. So again, Steve can go into this in more detail, but my assumption is that there is agreement now on both sides to the wetland delineation. The other issue was the concern about flooding or potential flooding on the property due to the past history of the area, and that there's a watershed study being conducted by the town's consultant Kleinfelter for flooding concerns in this area. I initially reached out to Kleinfelter asking them for a proposal to do calculate the actual flood elevations for a range of storms, both current and 2070 projected, because that's the scope of their watershed study. After a month, it took a month to get that proposal. In the meantime, because of the delay, I had recommended to Steve that he do those calculations, which he did do, and I think he'll present those tonight. Did come up with an estimated, I guess, extreme flood elevation. Again, I'll let him describe it. So at the time I recommended that he do that. I said, then we'll talk at this meeting tonight whether or not the commission wants to get that peer reviewed. In the meantime, I did request that Kleinfelder submit a proposal for a more typical peer review, of data and analysis that the applicant provides. So I did just receive that today. Have not had a chance to forward that to Steve yet. Something we'll have to talk about. It's $6,500. In my opinion, peer review needs to be done, but we'll talk about it.
Okay, so we're talking about both the wetlands delineation peer review that was done, and so there were some changes based on that.
Yes.
In agreement, and then this flooding conditions, right?
That's what was discussed, yeah.
Yep, okay,
All
so.
right. Oh, sorry, there's one other small item that was part of the continuance was doing test holes out there, which we
right.
have done. They showed the groundwater was elevation 155, we're well above that, 4.7 feet above that. Sandy soils, pretty good soils there, so no concern for the infiltration system. We did submit calculations regarding that to the engineering department and have applied for a stormwater management permit as well. Relative to the flood study, we did, a drainage study using TR 55, which we would typically use for, say, designing detention basins and such. It's the base program. It's a technical release by the government that's used for HydroCAD studies, those type of things. The bottom line, what the study shows is, number one, yes, there's a upstream flooding problem because it's a very significant area that goes into, west of Davis Road into that culvert. That culvert's not size big enough, although even with the amount of water that would go down there would have to be increased in quite the size. So it showed that, be some overtopping, but on our property, as we kind of discussed at the first meeting, the limitation is going to be the elevation of Graniteville Road, and it can only go so high above Graniteville Road, down at the, kind of the point of the triangle.
Yep.
So down in this area, so this stream comes through here, and then there's another 30-inch culvert out of there, and then the ground is relatively flat there, so it can only crest that road so high. So I don't know what a peer review is going to change on that. It goes over the road and then it's all downhill to that vast wetland that's down by Route 3. There's a pipe system in that triangle, as well as culverts that run down there. So I just don't honestly understand what...
Well, this blue line right here is what you've determined to be, I think what you're calling the extreme flood elevation,
yeah.
155 feet. That's what it's saying?
It's more, yeah. I mean, it showed, so you get an elevation of like slightly below 155 at the intersection of kind of Graniteville and Old Westford where they come together. And then it's all downhill from there. You just can't, you can't produce enough water to, we're at our nearest activity is like elevation 157. You're just, no matter how much water comes down there, you're not going to have over a 2-foot, crest above that road. It's really that simple. So I don't know what this study is gonna do. I mean, and that's taken it to this 2070 extreme that, we shouldn't be held to that standard as it is. I feel bad for the upstream drainage issues, but they're there regardless of what we do. The other thing the flood study, the flood/drainage study shows is, with this vast area, this 3160, I think, square foot increase in impervious area just doesn't, affect the calculations at all.
So this is just obviously a map. This is what was determined for that in their draft study. Kleinfelter produced this. This is the property. So I don't have the expertise to say whether this is consistent with what you produced. Again, I just think it needs to be peer reviewed. I just think that's the way that the commission typically operates.
Okay.
How many typically operates? How many other how many other single-family homes have been peer-reviewed for a 2070 flood study?
But this is a different situation, so
So
we're not gonna.
so there's nothing typical about it. So you can't make the comment like this is what we typically do, because you have never typically done a flood study for 2070 anywhere, never mind for two single-family homes.
Well, we still have the right to do this, so.
I'm not sure how you undertake the right to do that. Your regulations are very specific about going to referencing the Wetland Protection Act for bordering land subject to flooding.
Well, but
Bordering land subject to flooding is very specific about how you determine that, and that's not even that's way below the numbers that I even use for a typical 100-year storm. They say use the TR55 calculations, they say use 7 inches of rain. We used 8 for the 100 and almost 11 for the 2070 storm. And again, nothing is going to change the cresting of Graniteville Road. You got to sit back and honestly use some
Okay.
common sense on that.
Let's ask, do you have any more comment, David?
My only comment, well, a couple of comments would be when I said, what the commission typically does peer review is when there appear to be legitimate concerns for doing so. If it doesn't matter whether it's a 1-lot, house or 2 lots or it's a 100-lot subdivision, if it looks like there are legitimate reasons, concerns for doing a peer review, then that's what I meant.
Why did you have my client spend the money to do a drainage study and then come in here and say, well, we got to do a review anyway? I mean, we could have, we were here 5 weeks ago. You got to, there needs to be some expedience in this process.
Well, I don't disagree with that. I have no control over how long a peer reviewer takes to respond. That's why I recommended that you yourself do the study.
Okay, so I do a study. I'm a professional engineer. I show very clearly on 11 inches of rain that this isn't going to crest within 2 feet of any of our activity on the site. So you asked me to do it. I gave you information showing that there's not flooding on the site, and now you're just tossing that away.
No. The peer. We'll see if the peer reviewer agrees with that, assuming the commission goes with that. The other comment is that under the bylaw, the commission has the right to request a peer review. Again, if it has concerns.
The bylaw does not reference a 2070 flood study or any of the mass resilient plan. The bylaw references the Wetland Protection Act when it comes to bordering land subject to flooding. And the Wetland Protection Act is very clear about how you determine that. It starts with FEMA floodplain, which there is no FEMA floodplain on the site. And if there is a dispute, it says to do the TR55 calculations. It doesn't say go to 2070 and have nuts, and you get to, your bylaw doesn't say you get to do whatever you want to do. Your bylaw.
Well, no, my interpretation of the bylaw is, and the associated regulations, for any concerns that the commission has, commission can,
can you
have
cite
that.
Can you cite the section that tells that you have interpreted to say that?
I can. I don't know whether you want to take the time here to do that.
We're really kind of wrangling a lot here.
Yeah, I was going to say, why don't we table this for the moment? Were we going to talk also about the wetlands delineation and the impact of that?
Yes, I think we should. So maybe Steve, you can
there were
summarize that.
a few change. Can you put the plan back up?
Yeah, hold on.
So there were just a few changes. Only one really had a very
Sorry, that's wrong plan. There you go. Yeah.
So we added a flag here, kind of removed a flag here, so we dot to dot there, and we removed that flag, dot to dot there. There are a couple other flags over here in the field that got added that really aren't near the development area. So the one, this flag 56A1, kind of changed the projection of that. That was prior to that, that was 51 feet from the corner of the house. And now we're at 42.5 feet, so we've requested a waiver to that. Just keeping in mind that existing barn is there. So, we 64 square feet. That falls entirely within the area of where that barn that we're taking down. The barn is, I think, 2,332 square feet of that is within the no building zone, and it's 6 feet from the wetlands. So our project, when we take the barn out of that inner buffer zone, and we replace it, so we have a significant increase in, environmental benefit to that, to taking that barn out. We're having, the drainage from the house goes into a gutter system, gets recharged. It's not a direct runoff into the wetlands. So it's really not a significant request, I think, just because it's, it's not the whole building that's 42, it's just the corner. And obviously, we're replacing a barn that's much more, closer to the wetlands, doesn't have drainage, doesn't have gutters, all the runoff goes right into it. So we've kind of asked for a waiver to that. As part of that move too, we would have to change the property lines because of the 80% contiguous wet upland. So we need to tweak these lines a little bit. We'd have to go back to the planning board for an approval not required plan. Really, it's kind of a paper change. It doesn't really affect.
This is the parcels between the two lots?
Yeah, we just have to add a little bit of area to the lot on the right, a little bit of upland, contiguous upland area, because we lost some. So that's where we stand. It's just two single-family houses. It's fairly typical, other than you undertook a 2070 flood study in the area, and we're kind of caught in that.
Okay.
I wouldn't say, my flood study isn't what Kleinfeld is doing. I'm not, I'm just I don't have the resources. We don't have the, we won't want to go out and do everything that they're doing. I did a kind of a drainage study and used some online stuff, really just to show that, hey, this road, what we've been talking about, this road just is never going to crest by 2 feet. I mean, you can go out there and stand there. The thing is flat. It's all downhill on the other side of it. It's so I don't know what gets peer reviewed. They're going to look at my study and say it's not as good as their study. They're going to be right. But nothing's ever going to top that road by 3 feet. If they come back with that, then I guess I'll be peer reviewing them, because I don't know how that would happen.
Okay. David?
Just a couple of things going back to the peer review of the wetland delineation. So Ron, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
So is anything you want to mention that hasn't been mentioned so far on the review of the wetland delineation?
I mostly agree with the locations of the flags. We did make the couple adjustments in the field. They appear to be correct on this updated plan. And I did have a couple other clerical things that I noticed in the notice of intent that really don't change a whole bunch, but I figure I'd mention them just if the commission decides they want to discuss them. The USGS map that's provided is actually not a USGS topo map, so it doesn't show this. It wouldn't show whether the stream is perennial or not, or intermittent for that matter. But on an actual USGS topo map, the stream is not shown on the plan, and actually stream stats shows it in the wrong location. But both of those indicate that it is intermittent. The Norris letter referenced the FEMA Zone A, and I understand we've been discussing the floodplain right now. And I was just going to request that it gets added to the plan, but it looks like Steve has done that at this time, at least with his calculations. The abutters notice references that the legal notice was being published in the Eagle Independent, but the legal notice from the town says that it's being published in the Chelmsford Independent. I don't know if that's the same newspaper, but there should just be some clarification of where that actually is published or was published.
Neither one. It was the Lowell Sun.
Okay, so none of those are accurate and should be updated, I guess. Steve mentioned that there's test pit data, so if the commission wants to review that, I've recommended it just to see if the infiltration system soils are able to, well, I know Steve's done the calculations, but see if the soils match those mentioned in the North letter. I had thought to ask, for the commission's sake, the quantity of impervious surface for comparison between the existing. Steve just said that 2330 square feet is the barn, but we don't really have an idea of what I saw there was 1,540 square feet for each house, but I don't know if that includes the driveways or not because they're in the buffer zone. And it just would be, I think, useful for the commission to have that information just as a comparison. DP requested that there's some sort of planting plan or restoration plan for the 25-foot area that's currently over, the barn currently exists over. And they asked for native plants to be installed or as part of the restoration plan. In that same area, right adjacent to the barn, we did notice some tires that were discarded in a pile there. I would recommend that those tires are removed as part of the restoration process, and possibly included in that planting plan is some sort of invasive management plan. Along the north side of the property, there's a large Japanese knotweed infestation, and I did notice some bittersweet and autumn olive while we were out there that could just be addressed with some herbicide. South of Old Westford Road, there's a wetland that we hadn't. I had brought the attention to the applicant. I understand that there's no access to that property, but it is listed as a potential vernal pool. And I believe that it would still project a buffer zone onto the property, which may affect the eastern driveway, or at least encompass part of the eastern driveway that may not be within buffer zone right now. It really wouldn't change anything. It's on the opposite side of the road, but it would increase the amount of impervious that would be within buffer zone. Then the last, or one of the last things regarding the vernal pool, we didn't inspect it. Obviously, we didn't have access to the property, so we don't actually know if it's a vernal pool or not. But just in case that it is, I recommend there's a couple storm drains that are located further east down. I think it's Old Westford Road is that the southern one, and there should be some silt sacks placed in there during construction just to capture anything. And I'm not sure if those catch basins drain directly towards the stream or if they go towards that vernal pool. But if they do go towards either, it would be nice to have some type of containment from any sediment that managed to evade the erosion control and end up on the street. And then just lastly, there's certified or certificate of mailings. I don't know if the commission has received that they were sent, so that should just be verified. And fencing, the bylaw mentions fencing a wall or some type of permanent marker along the 25-foot buffer. I think I'm unfortunately using my phone right now, so the plan is very tiny, but I would just recommend that those get added to the plan before final draft. And I apologize for not having the report out before this meeting. It was just a hectic couple of days, and I will have an a formal report for the commission, hopefully by the end of the week.
Thank you, Ron.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Just one more thing I'll add. So the waiver, the requested waiver is to the 50-foot no build setback from wetlands. Since I've been here in Chelmsford, I've never known the commission to waive that requirement for entirely new construction. So I just, in my opinion, I think there needs to be a really good reason to grant that waiver.
Okay, all right. We'll start with the commission to ask questions. John, you want to start us off?
What are you requesting a peer review for?
For the review of the flood elevations that Mr. Dresser has calculated.
That's the big flood study that the town made, right?
No, it was more specific than that. So it is, I'm just reading here, it is the intent of this study to show that the proposed 2 single-family dwellings will not affect current flooding elevations for the 2-year, 10-year, 25-year, and 100-year storms, as well as projected 2070 rainfall data at the extreme limits of range. So just very specific, asked him to calculate those elevations. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, I think he came back and said, well, he calculated the maximum for what the greatest of those ever would be. So I'm simply recommending that those values be peer reviewed and whether to determine whether there's agreement with what he has calculated.
I don't know how they're going to spend $6,500 on that. You know, we had a wetland review. You first came back with a guy wanted $7,500 to do a wetland review. You're asking for $6,500 for something that, you know, I'm probably going to charge $1,000 for. It probably took me, you know, 6 hours to do.
I can bring up the proposal. And haven't had a chance.
I mean, there aren't any real standards here. You're asking somebody to review something that I've designed without any kind of real standards. I'm just using information from the internet. It's not, the point only is that road is not going to flood over. Floods just don't work that way. When high water hits a road, it goes over the road.
We've heard that.
It's downhill on the other side, it goes downhill.
Let's let John continue.
Yeah, I was just trying to wrap my head around this peer review for that. I don't know.
Anything else?
Sometimes I think this is a 2-lot subdivision. You know?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, if a peer review could be done for $1,000, that's acceptable. But $6,000-7,000 is, I think it's unacceptable in a way. That's my opinion. But now you're going for a waiver too. There's no way to move that house at all.
We could make the house smaller, but it would be detrimental to us
Right,
to have to do that, yeah. We can cut an angle there. I'm not sure ultimately what we accomplish environmentally other than, you know, not granting us a waiver. I think, is there a special circumstance? Yeah, I think the special circumstance that probably sets it apart from just coming out and clearing is that there's already a barn there. Where this impervious area, there's already impervious area there. We'll provide restoration where the barn is, if that's what DEP want. I didn't pick up on that. So you're going to end up with a better environmental situation when these 2 houses are built than what's there now, that's for sure.
And who moved the flag? Who delineated the new flag?
Norse delineated it. We met with Oxbow, and I was on site, and we did more auger points. You know, they agreed upon it, Norse and Oxbow.
Okay.
So that was, we're all in agreement on that. I didn't realize it was going to be a full notice of intent review. I thought it was just a wetland line review. But so hopefully Oxbow puts all that stuff in the report because it went pretty quick.
Yeah,
But
I will follow up with
nothing
that.
he said there is not something that we can do. It's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Let's see
Good, John.
what Bill has.
Okay, Bill?
Yeah. Okay, so the 50-foot waiver is the only waiver they're looking for, right?
I believe so.
Okay. And the way you've got it, you've figured 7.5 feet
It's,
closer?
yeah,
So you're 42 and a half feet?
right, on a triangle. So
Okay.
it's only
And the barn
64
goes, right now, the
square feet.
barn goes almost, what, 7 feet close?
Six feet from the wetlands.
to the wetlands, to the new wetlands line, right?
Yes.
Yep. So we really don't like to, if you can move any, you can't move that house a little bit or do anything to stay out of the 50-foot?
Not with the same side. We can make the house smaller. We can.
That's the only way you can,
Yeah.
you're right up against the setbacks from the street?
Correct, yeah. I mean, you do have a 40 feet, so
Yeah.
not really common town to town,
Right.
but that's what it is.
Right.
And how deep's the house, front to back, at that point?
I think it's 28.
28 at that point there?
On the garage side, the gable end of the garage? 24 on that. One thing we can probably do is, we don't like to do it, but if we had to bump that forward, honestly, the bump's there for aesthetics. So
Right.
It's 26, actually.
I'll tell you, if
So
you
we
can
could
move
We
it,
could probably come in straight, put the garage down to 24. Although, not much of a problem, but it's not, it'll bump your head 4 feet, so you're still within that. You're still gonna be within 50. We're not gonna get out of there, but we can probably do that. The house won't look as nice, but we can do it.
right. The area that's down on the other side of the brook, to the Granderville Road side,
Yep.
is there any work, right now,
No.
it's cut with a brush hog or something, it looks like. Is that gonna be maintained in any way, or is that just
I wouldn't
gonna let
imagine so.
grow?
No, I think it would just be let go.
Okay. And who owns the easement? The
The
drainage?
easement to the town, town of
To the town.
Chelmsford has the rights to that easement. It's owned by.
Does that
it's on the
have to be
property.
maintained any certain way? Does that have to be cut, or?
If it
access
is, it would be
to
the
it?
town who would probably have that responsibility since it's their easement, but
Okay,
I'd
so-
say it's not something that needs to maintain. It flows pretty good. It's a good looking stream.
I mean, on the sides of it, do you need to cut anything, or is that just gonna leave that alone, right?
It's not my record. Maybe Ron might want to pipe in on what he saw, but I don't think it's, no, we don't have to do it currently.
Okay. And in your plan, from the brook to the back of the house, in the 25 no-build area, do you anticipate putting any lawn in that area? You're gonna let it grow naturally, or what's the?
Well,
plan for
we
that?
intended to let it grow naturally.
Yeah.
But it sounds like DEP has piped in looking for some restoration planning.
Well, restoration, but I mean, the rest of the area, the rest of it,
There's a limit of work where the straw wattles will go.
right.
So everything behind there would just.
Yeah,
stay wooded
I wouldn't want to see anything cut from the 25-foot to the brook. It turn into a lawn at some
down.
point.
Down the road?
Yeah,
Well, I think what Ron mentioned, I wasn't aware, I didn't see it, but I guess if we put a visual barrier at the 25-foot mark, where limit of work is, that would,
Right.
in perpetuity. I don't know if it's typical in this town, but some towns
yeah.
will put signage on the fence that says,
yeah,
protected
people
area.
do different things. They put blueberry bushes, rocks,
Okay.
whatever. Some kind of barrier so people know.
Yeah.
If the house is
There
sold,
can be options in the
there's
order of
different
conditions.
options.
Okay. Certainly, that makes sense.
What's that?
That makes sense.
And you said you did the deep holes for where did you do them? Did you do them right where the
Yep.
pits are?
Yeah, that kind of crosshatch thing there is a pit, is where we did that one. That one's,
Okay, so from the water, where you found the water to the bottom of that pit
yeah,
is how much?
4.7 feet.
Okay, so you're fine with that?
Yeah, they basically, because of the grade that we have to do to build the house, those systems are, right under the topsoil, top and subsoil comes out, system goes in, fill over more than anything.
I'd like to see you out of the 50-foot, because as we try to maintain that waiver, I mean, that, the 50-foot no build. So if there's anything you can do with that, I'm not asking you to answer that now, but that's my opinion. As far as the peer review, the $6,500 peer review, I'm against that peer review. When I, at the last meeting, I was interested in Kleinfeld maybe coming up with they did a lot of work on that area.
Yeah.
They should know that like the back of their hand, to the point where they don't have to charge $6,500 to tell us whether or not these two lots are going to affect or any flooding is going to affect these two houses.
I would love to see what they
$6,500
have. I would
seems
love to see what
ridiculous
they
to me.
have. I get,
I'm
all
sorry?
all that's been provided to me is that one view that was put up on the screen. I don't know what they've done already.
They haven't done anything.
Have they
but-
done all
but
this?
30 hours at
They've done-
$200 an hour, 200
They've
plus an hour.
done something they've come up with this blue
Yeah,
line
I'm not in
on
favor
the-
of that.
on the
If it was,
property.
like John said, if it was a reasonable amount and somebody gave us some information that would be benefit to us, but for $6,500, that's crazy. That's wasted money for no good reason, where you've done the calculations, you can go out there and look at the site and determine that it's not going to affect those houses if that ever flooded out. So I'm against any of that peer review.
Thank you.
That's my opinion.
Mark?
I'm going to emulate a lot what's already been said. I'm not concerned about, that information that was done, that's town information, right? That's available to the public, correct?
What Klein?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is it?
It is. I don't know if the final draft of the report is out yet or not, and I don't know to what extent they go into actual calculations in the report. I can certainly ask about that.
So you don't have access to that stuff?
I was
apparently.
not provided access to what they have. The only thing I was given when I was asked was that map that was put up there with the blue line on it.
I'm having a problem too, Dave. I hate to go against what you're recommending, but I know the area pretty well. I know the elevations. I know you're expressing what it can't happen. You can't have the big overflow there on the road because but I am concerned about what Billy and John brought up. I don't really care if you have a hard time getting a house in there, but you can't use that design. Make it something that brings it back on the right corner to get your square footage in there. I don't really care about that, but I'm not going to approve it to go beyond the 50-foot.
Understood. I appreciate that. I appreciate the input. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Mr. Chair, I agree with my colleagues, John, Bill, Mark, I agree with what they said.
Okay.
What I could do, I can't guarantee they'll respond, but if you I can forward you the proposal. You could send me your comments on that. I can ask Kleinfelder if they can get it down, get the cost down.
Can we share what they've done?
I can certainly ask.
Okay.
I can certainly ask.
What they've done in terms of the big project?
Yeah.
I thought that was out there. That was available.
Last I was told that the final draft is not yet public information. That may have changed.
Okay.
So I can ask. I can certainly send the draft I have.
So-
I just don't think there's really. I think what you're looking for is actual calculations.
No, I'm actually looking for something that, even if it's a draft, that shows that the road's not going to flood by 3 feet there. I can't imagine anything they've done doesn't show that.
Can we get permission to share that with him? Or
I don't
ask?
see why not.
Yeah.
I can certainly ask.
If you ask that, but the other thing, I'm listening to my colleagues here on the commission, and I don't imagine they're gonna go from 6,500 down to, maybe 5,500, but that's still.
They may not.
Yeah,
They may not.
I don't see that.
They may not even respond.
Yeah.
They may say, that's our price.
Yeah, so, I'm kind of along with them. I thought it was a really good opportunity that we had this town flood study at the same time. I'm just very disappointed in the price tag that they're attaching to what I would consider to be 2 hours of work. And, and it's extraordinary when the number that they came back with. It's just, and I have to say, if we assume all of his calculations are even close, then it's not really close. I think. Am I hearing that right? Yeah, I mean, that's, even if he's made some mistakes in his calculations, it's not magnitudes. So I'm having trouble with that. So, but we still have the waiver, and so I'm also in agreement. I don't want to give up on the waiver. We don't do that unless there's a real hardship, and I'm in agreement. I think I was hearing that from everyone here. So then, if we say that, then do we have an adjustment that you have to make to
Yep.
to do
Yeah,
that, and
obviously.
then we continue to continue the meeting, so you come back?
I think I would like to get Oxbow's report,
Okay,
review what he says, make
sense.
those changes, get them in public record before you would close the meeting, and
okay. Ron,
from
do you
there.
know when you'll get the report to us?
I'm hoping to have it by the end of the week. If not, it'll be before mid next week.
Okay, because timing-wise, our next meeting is 2 weeks from tonight, and as you may have heard, we have some other topics, the lake review.
Yeah.
And David really needs to have the information by next Wednesday.
Yeah.
That's our,
Okay, yeah.
that's our day. I appreciate
That's
it.
no problem.
I
I was
I heard
trying to
it
get
too.
it out.
It went
on-
fast. I heard,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Ron.
It's on recording
I-
too, so you can go back
I
if
can
you
go
need
back
to.
and look. I've heard most of it, and I can
The other-
certainly change the house size. I can certainly add the plantings. I can
okay.
do.
So that's, I'm sorry, that's in the restoration plan,
Yeah.
that area? So what I'm trying to do is, for the next meeting, have your plan with the building, so we're out of the 50, get your restoration plan. What else do we need to move this thing forward?
I would just request to put some kind of delineation on the plan to show some kind of a permanent marking of the 25-foot no
Yep.
disturb. You don't have to get specific,
Understood.
but just show that on the plan schematically.
Okay. Then I guess I'll take a motion to continue the meeting. We don't need to take any more public comment at this point, do we?
Yeah.
Anybody's here.
We
if there
can,
is any.
yeah, all right, we'll take public comment if anybody wants to get up and make a comment on this particular application. Okay, I see nothing, so,
Chairman, I move then we continue this public hearing until our next meeting of May 27th,
all right,
2025.
May 27th, motion from Chris. Second from Bill, thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So motion passes unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in, thank you. We're gonna take a 3-minute break. We need a 3-minute break.
Little bio break for everybody.
Bio break. We will start up the meeting again. We are moving right along here. Thank you very much. Appreciate everybody's patience, and we still have a bit of stuff to cover, but I think we will be not here too late tonight. So next thing in our list here is in the discussion section, the designation of 2 commission members to serve on the committee for Phase 2 LID. This is low-impact design. This is a nature-based solutions guidebook. There's a committee that's being formed. David, I'll let you talk about it. Peter has talked about this. He's not here tonight.
Peter has much more knowledge about this than I do, and I don't know if Chris is still here. He may have some as well. But yeah, I think I don't think the purpose is necessarily to rise to the level of new regulations, and I think it's proposed to be applied mainly to redevelopment. But you know, it's a guide. It's guidelines. I'm going to be part of the task force as well. Staff. So Peter has indicated that he's willing to participate. So,
okay.
The request is for 2 commission members. I don't know if anyone else is interested.
Anybody else on here want to be participating in this or willing to? We have Peter, and we all know Peter.
He's not here, so he's automatic.
Well, but he volunteered.
He
wants to be. So I am not going to volunteer. I often do for these things, but I just get too much on my plate, and I'm not going to take it on. But I'm willing if anybody else. But I'm not seeing anybody raising it. So
I think Peter and David can handle it.
Yeah.
I think David is going to be there, and
you'll be well served with Peter.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll be well served. Okay, so we'll make that a decision that we're going forward with 1 commission member on this. I don't know how long this will be, a couple of months or something, this committee, or?
I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. All right.
We'll find out. And I don't know how often the meetings will be, but
yep.
we'll get there.
Okay, good. Next on our agenda is, so do we have to notify somebody, notify Evan?
Yeah, Evan, I'll let him know.
Okay, you just let Evan know, thank you. And we have an update from the Wetland Bylaw and Regulation Review Subcommittee. That's Peter, Chris, and I, and Chris and David's participating as well. And so, Chris, you had a short update. We're just kind of getting a directional update, right?
Sure. Yeah, I'll just keep it short. I mean, we met on May 6th. The meeting went about an hour and a half. We spent, detail, really basically taking the standard Massachusetts Association of Conservation Commissioners standard recommended bylaw. It's been adopted in many, many towns throughout the Commonwealth. We took their latest version, and what we did was really went and took our bylaw that's about at least 15 years old, that was passed by town meeting a number of years ago. We took that bylaw and really went from the preamble right through the document. It took us about an hour and a half just to see what might be missing, or see if we had we're how we matched up, and were there possible areas for improvement. Maybe some things we could adjust. I mean, overall, we actually were in pretty good shape when we compared us against the standard MACC document. But there were a few areas that we wanted to have some further follow-up on and take a little bit of a look. And I can just highlight some of those. For example, there was a reference in the MAC standard about protecting intermittent streams. So that's something, we cover the perennial streams, but that seemed to be missing from our bylaw. So we want to do a follow-up around that. That's one item to make sure we perhaps cover the intermittent streams, which have an important function for the environment and the habitat and the wildlife. That was one area. We also we wanted to take a look at the rare species habitat. I mean, we have jurisdiction, up to our buffer zone, 100-foot buffer zone, but there would be value in having projects come into us to have, when they come in, to present to us, go beyond that buffer zone and give us more information about the rare species, where they're migrating, what's happening with them. It could help us make better decisions. So we wanted to take a look at that rare species habitat, not expanding the buffer for them, but just kind of getting more information that might influence our decisions. So that was one area. Let's see. Question came up around we have this. We have our setbacks under our bylaw, which is similar to many communities where we really discourage having buildings within 50 feet of the wetlands line, of streams, of brooks, the wetlands itself. So we have a tough bylaw that says that you can't have a building within 50 feet. And over, the many years that we've been on here, I mean, I've been I've had multiple terms here, but it's really rare, very rare. It goes 10, 15 years sometimes before we waive that. And we actually look really carefully at the situation around the hardship involved, and can the applicant move typically a building, a few feet to keep it away from the very important habitat. Again, it is important. I mean, once the building goes there, it's there forever. I mean, it's not, it's nothing we can really do. So we've kind of, and we know scientifically that area is really very important for the species and everything that goes on. That area right where, and you can check, your own backyards and that type of thing, but you'll see the wildlife that's out there right in that transition area. So one of the kind of exceptions or kind of ways sometimes projects go forward is that we've in the past had an exception for small lots, like lot sizes are under 40,000. And so many years ago, I think we felt, the commission at the time, was that we wanted the kind of, small lots in neighborhoods that were typically older neighborhoods in Chelmsford. We kind of were sympathetic to the people that own those properties, and some had lots that would have been, in the family for a long time. So we kind of exempted that. And so occasionally we have a project come through. It's on one of those old lots that's been around forever, and we've grandfathered that in. So the question to the commission is, with this new commission, whether we want to take a look at that exception or not, leave it or not. I don't think we had any consensus among the people meeting at whether we wanted to change that or not, but it was something we were looking at. Also, one of the things too is the lawns. A lot of times we have the projects come in and they're looking to put their lawns kind of right up as far as they can to the edge of the wetlands lines. And we know that, again, scientifically and for the environment, habitat, and the animals, that having those beautiful green lawns look great aesthetically, but they're really not that great for the environment. So we wanted to see if we could come up maybe with some, and maybe it's guidelines, maybe it's in our regulations, but maybe there's something we can do to discourage having those lawns going right up to the edge of the resource area. So we talked about lawn setback possibly. Another area that we had was that there's a potential for a developer to come in and take a very small home or structure and say, hey, I'm only doing an addition. We're just adding on. And we've had some projects come in that were, a very small, 400-foot cabin, so to speak, and they're coming in and creating a building that's 10 times bigger than that structure. But they're saying, baha, we have a loophole here under your bylaws. We're legally entitled to do that. So we wanted to take a look at that addition, and maybe there's some wording we can do around that. So we looked at that, and then actually hardship came up, and because in order for us to waive any of these setbacks, we have to find hardship, and hardship's kind of in the eye of the beholder. What is a hardship? Was it just financial? Is it more than financial? And so we were thinking of probably going to town council. We have a new law firm, and maybe get some guidance around what hardship is legally and what's enforceable these days with legal precedent. So we took a look at hardship. Might be something we want to look into a little bit more. And that's kind of those are kind of some of it. I mean, I think the next steps is we'd probably have another meeting of, again, the team, Peter, myself, David, right, Carl, and just look at regulations, because if we can maybe make some changes in the regulations, that's a simpler approach where, as long as the regulations are relatively consistent to our bylaw and don't conflict with the bylaw, we can make changes in our regulations. We'd have to have a public hearing, get input from the public. We can't go change our regulations without having a public hearing and public input, but maybe we want to change those regulations and fine tune them a bit. And again, to do that, we'd have to have a vote of the commissioners in a public hearing environment, but we wouldn't necessarily have to go back as we would with the bylaw and have to go to the full town meeting, and then also have the Attorney General approve any changes, which is a pretty arduous path. So that's where we're at. We'll probably have one more meeting of the subcommittee to look at the issues from a regulation perspective, and then come back to the full commission and present some recommendations, possibly some changes. But that's kind of where we're at. Carl?
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, this was intended to be kind of a general directional thing to you guys, and if you have a reaction that says it sounds like you're on track, or we're way off track, or I think we're on track.
And I actually, since the meeting, thought of a couple of other areas we could look at as well, which we'll talk about at the next meeting.
Okay.
I think you're on the right track, Chris. I think, and incorporating any changes in the regulations would be the way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we did make a recommendation for bylaw change, it better be worth it, because that's a big.
It doesn't sound like the things you're
yeah.
talking about
And I
are
don't,
in mind.
I'm not sensing that yet, but I won't say that yet.
Yeah.
I don't know. We still have some discussion to go through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, quick update for
Okay.
you.
Thank you very much, Chris. Good update. Update now on the speaking of Freeman Lake, update on the Freeman Lake parcel boundary surveys.
Really nothing new since I last reported on it. Again, I'm just, very soon I'll be asking the surveyor for a proposal to put in those granite bound markers at the locations we talked about.
Yep.
Also going to ask the fence company for an estimate to put in a split rail fence, which is what we talked about at that one boundary.
Okay.
Of that one parcel
So
there
just-
on Willis Drive.
Yeah, as a general reminder of what this is, we have a number of parcels that are at the care, custody, and control of the Conservation Commission that are on the edge of Freeman Lake, multiple parcels. And we've had many legitimate complaints of people encroaching on those properties. And we've had lots of questions of where exactly our lines are. And so it's been very slow, but we're getting there. We're making progress, and we're getting to the point that we're able to really know where those boundaries are. We've had the surveying done, and now we're going to get boundary markers put in. And we will, this year, towards the end of the year, we'll be becoming more visible and strict about that.
Yes.
Trying to take care of, guarding our land.
We just have to wait till he gets more money first.
Yep, yeah, it's not free, but we have a plan, so. And we appreciate the pushing that we've got from the public on this. It's helpful for us to move forward. Next up, we do have a presentation here from one of our guests in the room. This is the next item, we moved you up, Mr. Sperry. So this topic was a big topic for us during the Open Space and Recreation Plan Committee that we completed at the end of this past year, and we made the plans submitted to the state, and a big chunk of that was ADA trails. And now Dave has a quick update on a meeting that he attended last week.
Right. With the change of administrations, they've kind of changed the philosophy for open space trails. So what we have in the OSRP, even though it's only 6 months old, is out at 8. But I think it's for the good, actually. So the new initiative is to make trails universally accessible. And what's on the chart is the boilerplate that they gave us at the first meeting that they've had. And they want to get all the stakeholders together to really implement a universal type trail. And I'll get into more details on that shortly. The big thing here is there was a forum last week, which I attended. You can go to the next slide. Okay, which is quote unquote a listening session done over Zoom, 2 hours long. And what they're trying to address is there are more issues than just wheelchair access when it comes to ADA. There's a whole spectrum, okay, that we want to address. And that's anybody with mobility issues, okay, start going from a wheelchair to where somebody's in rehab like me, okay, with a knee, where, yeah, I can hobble around, and I want to be able to get out there onto the trails, but I can only go so far. They want to make sure that you can get out there and challenge yourself too. So the big takeaways on that were that a quarter of the population has some kind of disability in their lifestyle, okay? And that that could be mobility, visual, auditory, cognitive. And then 44% of the adults over 65 are reporting some kind of impairment also. And that population amount is going to grow in Massachusetts in the short term. So go ahead to the next slide. Okay, simply, they gave us a 30-minute overview presentation, Then they broke us into small groups for 60 minutes, and then came back together for a summary. My breakout session paired in trail users with various disabilities. We had a blind person, a person with epilepsy, a person with knee problems, and a wheelchair person. We had a person from the Audubon, DCS, and the New England Botanical Garden. And we just went around talking about our experiences. Me as a trail designer, I got to actually talk to end users to see their particular issues firsthand, as opposed to reading a guideline from the U.S. Forest Service. Okay, next slide. So what they're really asking for, the first, number one, was public transportation to a trail site. That's a little hard for us because we don't have bus stops near our trailheads. But the big thing that's new is the rideshare apps, which a lot of these people use, will only take you to places that have addresses that are in their system. So we have to make sure that our trailheads that we make more mobility friendly actually show up in the Uber and Lyft apps so people can get to them. And then the other things they wanted were sensory-rich environments. They actually wanted to feel some of the soil under their feet. They wanted leaves in a little bit. Okay, they wanted to be in nature. They wanted to be away from the noise, cars, people. Okay, all the experiences that you typically expect. And then the big thing also was exercise and health-focused trails for the rehabilitation. Okay, if you have a 1,000-foot old fire road, okay, yeah, that can be traveled, okay, without a wheelchair, but you can do it carefully. But you may need to rest every so many 100 feet. And you want to be able to do that because that's part of your exercise regimen. So judiciously placed benches or places to rest are important in our design. So we'll be cranking that into our plans. The other thing they were interested in was, okay, the trails of various difficulties. So if we take the Cranberry Bog, that starts out with a really nice flat road going in, and we put a few benches in there, and then after you get to the dam, it gets more and more difficult. That's reasonable. We just have to plan it out. And we just have to say, oh, you can get this far with this level of things, then you're going to hit some roots. Okay, so they want that information easily accessible. So either on the website or on the kiosk.
Or both.
Or both. They were not, the users were not that hip about QR codes. That a lot of people don't want to use their phones for that particular thing. And people want to know what's the trail before they go out there. And for some trails, you may want to say, oh, if you had a big rain, there will be puddles. Okay, so it's more important to get what the conditions are before the person goes out there to experience it. Okay, next slide. Okay, so just to wrap up, we've got to update some of our plans for the new trails and what priorities we're going to go for the first ones we try to update. And when we're redoing the maps, which we'll hear about shortly, include some of the surface information in there. And then, like you've heard before, we've got a small project on tap. And then with these benches and signage and amenities on the trails, we just have to identify them and find the scouts and other volunteer groups to do that little package. And then basically publicize what we've done and how far we've gotten.
Okay.
So that was the gist of things. So the big thing is not just pure wheelchair access. It's full, think of a rehab situation where you've got the full spectrum of walking but need to rest, to wanting to have some obstacles in there to practice getting around while being out in the environment.
You forgot to mention the bench for waiting for Uber.
Oh, thanks. The other thing that Beth just pointed out was the users wanted a bench near the trailhead so they could rest and wait for whatever public transportation they need. Or if they're getting out of a vehicle, sometimes the process of getting out of the vehicle and getting things organized and getting to the trailhead has exhausted them. So they want a rest area there.
I see Eagle Scout projects.
Yes.
And all kinds of projects.
But we need to get some designs knocked out for this.
Any questions for Dave?
This is great.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah. Things I never heard of or thought of.
I'll let you, yeah, sure, real quick.
So again, I don't know if anything was shared, but I actually, my technically Eagle Scout project, it was, got the wood badge for scouting. I did a whole thing on teaching disability awareness and inclusive. I have a lot of links in my YouTube video, which again, if it was shared to you, I think you may have had it. But in Cape Cod, there is a Braille trail, so people basically can read the Braille signs as they go along. And I have a lot of links in there that could certainly be useful. I believe, actually, I do have to say Phil has been a big proponent of bringing accessibility into our trails. Planning, so a lot of scout projects certainly are here, but at the same time, the planning for certain benches and stuff needs to be started by them and then made sure they're accessible through those lines of scouting. But yeah, I mean, this is, like I said, this is a great start. I have a lot of, there's an NPR actually link on a whole thing. It was, I think they were in Colorado, but the accessibility is not just the wheelchair, the data, but they need to know the width of the trail, right? So yeah, if you're on a walker, it's going to be a different width than the chair. And so they want that data. And at this point, I would think there's kind of a resource to help us give out, kind of put all that data points so we're not starting from square one out there for the population to use.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Good input.
That brings just a couple of thoughts while you've got the design hats on. For the width, they typically want 36 inches.
Or more.
Or more, preferably more, so a companion can walk next to them. Okay, so you can go down side by side instead of front to back.
Yep.
And then for some of the blindness stuff, our trail user that is blind has trouble with the ropes. They're typically in the Audubon sites for it because not only do people use it for feeling what's there by the knots and things in the rope, but they also use it for stability. So it gets stretched and moved around and usually destroyed within a year or two.
Okay.
So.
Dave, thanks very much. I know you're becoming the town expert on this. Appreciate it. All right, let's keep moving ahead. David, if we can go to the, why don't we take that cranberry bog one first? Because I want to put everybody in the mood for a minute about trails. So this is like a minute long. I was at the Cranberry Bog on Sunday, and it really struck me. This was Mother's Day morning, so we were out there for not that long, but it's amazing what a wonderful sight that is. So next picture. This is out on Elm Street in Chelmsford. Lady slippers. I think I saw 20 lady slippers, pink lady slippers. This is out by the dam. Before you get to the dam on the left, it's really quite a sight to see them right there. And boy, you can walk right by and not see them unless you kind of know to look for them. Really cool. There's some more on the other side of the dam, and then we saw a couple more elsewhere. So next picture too, a little close-up of the lady slippers there. So they're, you gotta zoom, yeah, there you go. They're just beautiful. They're really nice. So next slide, we'll keep moving here. This is, you see these out there all the time. These are the beaver scent mounds, and this is the beavers showing their territory. And they're all over out there on the dams and on the causeway and all over the site. So there's plenty of beaver on that site.
So these
and
aren't the
they're-
lodges.
These are not lodges. These are, as I understand it, I'm not an expert, but my understanding, my reading on this is these are called beaver scent mounds, and it's the way they create, they impart their musk or whatever into it, and it's telling other beavers, get away, this is my area. So, and this is a big territory season right now. So next picture. We got a couple of northern, what do they call, David? Racer snake? Northern water snake.
Northern water snakes.
Yeah,
yes.
so they're in the same spot they were in last year. I saw them last year, and I looked this year, and they're in the exact same spot, which is on what we call the second dam heading towards Carlisle on the left. Don't disturb them, just look at them. They're nesting in that area.
So, I mean, they look like they're, what, 4 feet long, this one? Maybe?
I would have said 2 to 3, maybe
2 to
30
3.
inches, yeah. But it was good size.
Still pretty
yeah.
young, but they're still
Yep,
pretty young.
Yep, and then I think there's one more or 2 more pictures. Yeah, and that's just out at the point, and it's a nice spot. And people, for whatever reason, people like to stack sticks out there. So anyway, okay, that's the cranberry bog. We might do this on each one of our sites going forward because we have some great sites. So let's talk now about the, Bill's going to help me with this because he and I have talked about this quite a bit, about the model. So we talk about the stewardship on the sites, and let's go to the next page. So the general model here is that we really would like to do what was done years ago, which is have specific site stewards. Bill, I'll let you talk to this a little bit.
Yeah, each site, there are people who are very interested in regulars on all the sites. I walk at Oak Hill every day and Deep Brook every day and Coulis once a week or twice a week, and you'll see the same people at each site, and people will do things, voluntarily pick up trash. I know at Oak Hill today, I was up there, there was a couple logs on the trails. Those were cut, removed. There's somebody doing something at the sites all the time, unsung people that take care of things. So what we've done is kind of put together, talk to some of these people and put together a list of people on each site that will support that site. And not do big projects, but just kind of keep an eye on the site. If they see something that's out of whack a little bit, they'll contact David Kuntz, our agent, and then it'll be passed down to whoever needs to take care of it, whether it's DPW or anything else.
That's where the second one, the general trail stewards comes in.
Right, but you'd be surprised how many people walk the sites every day and do what they do, and they don't ask for any credit for it. They just they enjoy the sites and they want to keep them nice. So those people, we've contacted them, and they are a big part of maintaining the sites.
So that's the first one is the site stewards. The second one is the general trail stewards, and we're going to show another table here. David, can you open that up just a touch more? A little bit bigger. So the second one is trails. So those would be people that jump in when, like, there's logs down and we need to get a chainsaw on it, or a project. And you'll see some examples of that, projects that are happening. And then the new thing that this was Bill's pushing on this one is that each of us as commissioners will be responsible for at least one, if not a couple of trails. And the responsibility really just means that we're up to date on what's going on there, so that when we have a conservation meeting, at more or less every meeting, we'll do a quick rundown. Chris, what's going on here? Or John, what's going on? Oh, nothing, everything's good. Okay, fine, we move on. Or maybe there's some issues like so I'll jump in right here. Russell Mill, we had a issue in the last year with a resident. Someone was attacking trees with a hatchet and a machete, and that was a year ago. And it came back, and the mountain biking group is the group who supports that site. And they identified through a neighbor who they thought was doing it, And we did have the police talk with this person, and we think we've got the problem resolved. So it's not, hopefully not going to go any further than this, but it was really disappointing to see a resident of town damaging lots of trees at Russell Mill. But I'm hopeful that with the help of the police and the people that are on the sites and do it. But that would be the kind of thing that we'd have an update at the meeting and say this is what's going on. So that's the site commissioner, conservation commissioner role. And then we as a commission are reviewing projects. So when somebody comes to us with an Eagle Scout project, somebody comes up to the pollinator project at one of our sites, or a big new bridge or something, we get to review it. Might have some questions or suggestions, but generally we're happy to see those. And again, you'll see some answers. And then finally, our agent here, David, is supporting all these roles. He's going to pick up some emails going forward from anybody that has an issue on a site. If you have an issue, you can send us an email to David and it'll get out to the right people to get resolved. He's going to provide coordination. And I think really importantly is reviews site event requests. These site event requests are things like we've seen for many, many years, like the day before Thanksgiving walk. We have we have a mountain bike visit this weekend, I think, at Thanksgiving Forest. So David reviews those, and in most cases, he's going to review them and approve them within a day or two, and that's almost going to be 95% of the time. If somebody says, oh, we want to have a camp out on a site and an overnight, that might take 2 or 3 weeks. Come to us with that. We might discuss that in the commission meeting. But that's the unusual situation. So, but we are absolutely happy to have all kinds of events. Anyone in town can organize some kind of an event. Generally, if you're talking like 5 people, just go do what you're going to do. If you're going to do a bird walk or something, but we like to hear about it at a minimum and have some understanding of what's going on. Next page is just going to show. I don't know if you can even see all the names. It's not that good. But we do have every site that is our conservation reservations. We have names assigned for site commissioners for each of the sites. Hopefully you guys are okay with that. I talked to most of you. I don't think I asked you, but I think you're good with it. One's in your backyard, John, so I'm good. I'm sure you're good with that one. And I know I did talk to Bill because he got 3. And so I think we're good with that. Peter's not here, but I'm quite sure he's okay with, I think he got Thanksgiving Forest. And then the site stewardship is on the right. And this is, as Bill said earlier, the basic requirement for a site steward is you got to visit the site somewhat regularly. Somewhat regularly is very vague. Some people go daily. Some people might go once a week, might even be a little less frequent. But you keep an eye on things, and the basic thing is you're keeping an eye on the site, and you're gonna either address an issue yourself. There's some trash in the parking lot. There's some sticks on the trail that need to be moved, whatever. Or you contact David or one of us, and we'll escalate to the right general trail stewards list here on the left. And anybody who wants to join our crew here, we're happy to have more people involved. But we get out there. And we get out and address these issues very frequently, very regularly. You heard some comments about people getting out and doing the work and not looking for a lot of fanfare, but we just get it done. And there's a lot of people that do this, and these are all people that I have confirmed with that they will continue to do if they've been doing it for years. A couple of them are somewhat new, but really almost all of them have been doing this for years. Some of them have been walking the sites for 30 years. So everybody's all on board. So earlier in the meeting, we had some discussion that was pretty obvious that there's a little different perception of how things have been going, but I'm telling you, this is the reality of what's been going on at our sites. There's really no change in a lot of ways with our sites. I think we're going to have a stronger model going forward. I think this model is going to be more involved with the commission, and all of these people are very happy to move forward with a different model. And the other thing is, I don't see any change in cost. I've seen some money discussions. This doesn't change anything about dollars with the town. Everybody here volunteers their time. Everybody here volunteers. If there's some expenses that happen, they'll get reimbursed. We'll figure that out. We're not talking big dollars here. That's always been the case. So this, the town has, the DPW has for years done a lot of work supporting our sites. So the town has always spent money. Paul has always, the town manager has always supported any of the projects that we try to do. So in my opinion, there's really no change to a lot of things, and I think it's going to be a way forward. So let's go to the next page. We will be putting up some kind of a posting that looks pretty much like this, that if you're walking the trail and you see something, you can report the issue by emailing our friend David here, the conservation agent. You can call him and leave him a voicemail. It may take a couple of days to get back and get it resolved and get to it, but that is one way. I will tell you, you can email me. My email's on the town website. Many of you have my personal email as well. That's fine. I would ask that if you do this, please remember to include the site. Don't forget where you are. It sounds obvious, but hey, there's a tree down on the trail. Please fix it. Where? What site? So please remember to tell us the site. Give a description of the problem. Doesn't have to be long. And the location. And there's this app called What 3 Words. My son ran across this he was working over in England about 5 years ago, and he told me about this because he was out in the woods with some power company stuff, doing stuff. He said, this thing's really cool. It is an app you have on your phone, you download it, and it assigns a unique 3-word code that's the equivalent of a 3 meter by 3 meter GPS, coordinates, the GPS coordinates. And so if you have those 3 words and you give them to us, we know exactly where you are. We can walk with that information. I can look at the map on the thing and say, oh, it's at the Cranberry Bog and here it is. It's way down this one trail. Oh, that's a long way. Okay, that helps. And the other thing that's really helpful is to include a photo, if you can. Take a picture, because then we go, oh, that's not just a tree down, that's 4 trees down, and we need a big crew. Or it's just a small log, and 2 people. We have a rule, always 2 people if you're using a chainsaw. So it's that kind of information that we're looking for. So that will be up on the kiosk. We'll have the address, and I like that what Dave was saying. You got to have the address, and I have played around with Google Maps to try to make sure all our sites have the address and it takes you to the driveway access, because some of them take you out into the woods, and it's like that doesn't work. Okay, next page is the sample site management plans. So we have pages for each site right now. This is a sample. This is the Cranberry Bog. And so on the left is what we would call the regular ongoing site management for that plan. It's basic things that a steward or anyone can do. Remove trash, keep the signs visible on the site, clear obstacles on the trails, ensure trail markers are present. You'll see another project that we're doing. So basic things and a couple of specific things. The Cranberry Bog has a dam. We like to keep an eye on the level of the water at the dam. So keep an eye on the level of the water of the dam. I just added today, protect the pink lady slippers along the trail. So make sure they don't get trampled or cut or anything like that. So we have to figure out how to do that best. We did have the turtles on that dam. That was me who put the sign up. I saw those turtle eggs on the dam. I was the one that put that up 2 years ago. I scrambled to make the sign in my garage because I had magic marker and cardboard. So I know if somebody's interested in lots of sign work, I don't want too many signs because we're out in nature. But on the other hand, like a turtle egg sign is kind of a good thing to put out for a couple of months or a couple of weeks on the dam, that kind of thing. It's nice. We can always use those kinds of things, and you'll see a good example of another sign in a couple of minutes. So on the left side are the fairly quick, simple things that you need to do on a regular basis, site-specific, but some generic things. Invasive management. I bring my hand clippers with me almost every time I go out, and boy, if you just clip as you go almost. If you keep doing that, if everybody keeps doing that, bring your clippers, maybe even bring a little trash bag with you, pick up the trash. It becomes a kind of an easy thing going as we go. The potential projects on the right are just things that many of us have identified as opportunities on that site. They are not necessarily active, but if there's scout groups or church groups or anybody that wants to pick up some of these, we can figure out a way to make some of these projects happen. Some of the volunteers that you saw on the previous page, that was the general stewards and the other stewards, we decide which ones we want to work on, and we do them. You'll see a couple of examples. There's a lot of things that we have as ideas. If you have other ideas you want to do at a given site, let us know. The town has just done a facelift on the town website, and I'm hoping that we can get a lot of this information into the town website in the Conservation Commission area. I'm kind of excited about that. Paul's admin, James, has become very good at this, and he's going to be able to help us. I think he's committed to helping us do this. Having that information out there, and it's dynamic, and we'll know how to change it, is really, to me, really important.
Those projects need to come before the board, though. Those projects on the right are things that we would like people to present to us so that we're consistent on each site. If somebody's going to make a kiosk, say, we want them to be the size that we can put the signage we want on it, or a picnic table that works for that site. So it's not projects you just do in your garage and bring to the site. Bring the project to us, come to a meeting, present it to us. We can possibly help financially if we have the money, or suggestions, but we work together on that. Those items are on the right-hand side. With the other stuff is anybody can volunteer and pick up trash. You don't have to be a steward. You don't have to be. You're a steward in name because you are.
Yeah. We have people assigned, but anybody can do that stuff.
Anybody
on the
can
left.
do it.
Yeah. Next. So I just wanted to share some of the things, because there are perceptions that things aren't going to happen. Well, these are things done by people that were not part of COS and have been going on for quite a while. And these are just, we did this walkway last fall. There were probably 8 to 10 volunteers. It was 180 feet of existing extension over an existing walkway. And
reservation.
Yeah, this is at the Wright Reservation. We got the design. We borrowed it from the Bedford, Mass. Trails Committee. It was a really good design, a great project, and it's a big plus to that site. Next slide. We had a good crew on there. There's somebody in the background folding his arms there.
Supervisor.
Some supervisor in the background. But we had a good crew. That's only part of the crew because we had multiple days doing those installations, but it was a great project. Let's go to the next page. We have Warren Pohl. The Warren family asked us a few weeks ago if they could come and do, because this was their family parcel for years and years and years, and they wanted to do a invasive plant removal, and we were very happy to have them do that. This is what they call the honeymoon cabin spot. They had a family cabin on that location, and they said in sort of memorialize that location. They wanted to really clean up the invasive plants, so they've done a lot of work there. Cleaning that up, and there's still a lot more going on there. We've got other volunteers helping there, and it's going to be great.
And eventually we want to put a sign there.
Yeah, interpretive sign that says, maybe something about what the family's history was on that site. It's a very interesting spot. It's a beautiful spot on the hill. Next, please, David. We had a volunteer that made this vernal pool habitat sign for us last year. This was part of the Coulis acquisition, and there is almost certainly, we don't have a formal designation certified that it's a vernal pool, but we are 100% sure it is.
Oh, yeah.
It is for sure a vernal pool. And so that is the sign that we got made by one of our great volunteers. It's a cool sign. And this is to describe that the vernal pool is not just the wetland area, but it's the upland habitat for the vernal pool, which is 100 feet beyond the wetland part of the vernal pool. And so we need to protect that. We have our you heard some of our hearings tonight that we talk about wetland protection, and we can't be having strict controls on an applicant, and then we're not doing that on our own property. So this is an example of a sign. So again, for volunteers, if you don't really like walking out in the woods, but you like woodworking, we should talk. We can find some more. Next, We have this, speaking of woodworking, we have this Thanksgiving forest pollinator garden. So there was a neighborhood group that came to us and asked about putting in this pollinator garden. To the left, you can see the watering cube, which I just heard today that there are going to be some trees planted tomorrow, I think, and the watering cube's going to get filled up, I hope, so that we can water the trees tomorrow. This is through the DPW. They're helping there, but in the meantime, one of the neighborhood residents who's in the room, built that shed. It's a piece of art almost. It's really a pretty shed. And it's so that's to make it look nice. The intent is that at some point that pollinator garden doesn't need water, and the shed can be taken off site and moved to another location.
But Carl, just to note on that specific project, the people came before us for the garden, and also the person who built that shed for the water tank also presented us with what he was planning on doing, and the location was talked about. So that was an effort between DPW, ourselves, the neighbors, and there was a few other people involved.
The land trust might get involved.
Land
'cause
trust was involved.
They're neighbors, yeah.
Yeah. So, but it was all brought before us, and we discussed it. So we got a nice project out of it that everyone's happy with, and it looks great. I went out there to look at the shed for the water tank. It's beautiful.
And we're going to get a kiosk for this particular project right in that same area that
Right.
will match the water cube. Thank you. Okay, thanks, Bill. Good point. Thank you. Next slide. So trail map refresh. So we have a volunteer who is working on updating our trails, specifically the Wright Reservation map right now. And that's kind of the pilot one. I'm hoping that that's the way she's approaching this, that this is the pilot. And it will reflect change conditions on the site, since this was 2011 was the date on that map. That's 14 years ago, and there's a lot of changes on that site in the meantime. But in addition, based on what you heard earlier from Dave on the ADA stuff, including trail difficulty and surface information of the trail, we can now add that thing to this project, to this particular site. Also, we want to coordinate that with putting the maps both on the kiosk but on the online site. But also, I know a lot of people use All Trails app and some other things. So getting all of that to map together along with the signage on the site, because sometimes our signage is really out of date and not accurate. So there's a lot involved here. We could have more help on this, probably. Some of it might involve walking around a site with a backpack that's a really accurate GPS. Some of it might be doing some mapping, Adobe Photo, whatever. So those kinds of skill sets can be helpful here as well. There's a lot of things that can be done here. We also have a couple of young people that one's graduating, I think she was here tonight, and one's a freshman that took some GIS courses, and they may be involved in this as well. So I'm excited about this because I'd really like to get our maps with a refresh. It'll take a while, but this is the first one, the Wright Reservation. And by the way, we've been working kind of in the background with the tree committee on this particular site. Reservation has a lot of really cool trees on that site. It was a tree nursery years and years ago. And so there are some really unusual trees there. And so one of the members of the tree committee is we've done a few spins around the site and looking at doing something like a tree scavenger hunt kind of a thing. And I'm really excited to have that happen because it's a really cool site for that kind of a thing, and I think it would be a great thing to add to that site. And I think that's it, or is there one more? Did I have it?
I think that's it. Yeah,
okay.
That's it.
So this is where I think we're moving going forward. I'm very excited going forward. I think we have a lot of good stuff that has been happening, a lot of things that will continue to keep going. There's a lot of people involved. In spite of what people think, there's a lot of people that do a lot of work that don't want to be part of the social media world. They want to just do the work and get it done. And so this is a really good example things that we're doing sort of kind of behind the scenes, I guess. And maybe we need some more visibility, but I think this is a good example. Yeah, I'll take a quick, very quick, please, because we're getting late.
So social media is where it was, hey, the tree is down over in Wright, or, and that's how the volunteers would go. As far as Wright, I know from social media, a lot of people with dogs avoid it because the ticks are so bad. So they don't even go on that site. That site is also, it's been on the radar from cost to say, the trails were so muddy, so bad. And 3 years ago, my son and another scout, as far as the conservation hours, their volunteer hours, they took the free planks that was stacked up at Sunny Meadows and basically replaced some of the boards that had been rotting away.
Nice.
So it's wonderful that you guys have that whole walkway, but that has been on, a docket for years. So, I mean, you have to give credit to the people who have done a lot of work. That's all I think most people are asking, is there's been a lot of work. And a lot of those people you see on the trails, how do you know they weren't cost volunteers? So it's a tit for tat now, and it's kind of ridiculous. We need to move forward, and if this is the way to go, that's fine, but you need to give credit to the past volunteers.
Thank you.
That's all.
Yes, real quick.
Mine's like super quick. So one of the things I wanted to say was, I think I alluded to my comments, Denise Furbis, 50 High Street, is that learning about what you guys do is so incredibly hard. I spent hours digging to figure out what you guys do. And look at all this. That's why, like, for example, for those turtles, I didn't know where to go, and I had to get to them fast because there were people and dogs poking around on them, and it was before business hours, and it was 2 years ago. And yes, June is the month for turtles there, as you know. So if we don't know what you do, and we don't, if we don't know what the open spaces have to offer, and we don't, and if we don't know how to engage, it's really, really tough. And I know that social media, it's a thing, but I mean, even on the town website, we just can't find out. So,
point taken. Understood.
And
Thank you.
It's not a criticism. It's
understood.
We need to know. Thank you.
Okay, this is we need to wrap up. It is getting late. I have a very early flight tomorrow morning, so I really want to finish up very quick. We have a couple more things. I think that's it on the. Help me out here, David. What's next? Vote on request for CPC funding. Okay, for Coolest Farm boundary survey. So the first vote that we need to run through is, refresh my number on the Paul, is it 38,000?
No, it's 33.
33,000.
33.6. Yeah.
So we are requesting money from the CPC, the Community Preservation Fund, to do a boundary survey. So as we talked earlier about boundaries on different properties, in order for us to do the CR, and in order for the Sudbury Valley Trust to take the CR, they want a very well-defined, and I totally agree with them, I think it's a must, that we have a well-defined boundary survey for the property, and it's not cheap to have that done on 4 parcels. We had a much higher quote, we got a better quote. And so I just wanted to be able to say the vote at the Community Preservation Committee is tomorrow night, but I was hoping we could do a quick vote to approve that here with the Conservation Commission so that I won't be there. But Paul is graciously going to present this, and we can just say, yes, the commission agrees to that. Are there any questions on that? Or
What was the amount again?
33.6.
33.6.
33.6. And we got some other quotes?
Like
Yes,
half again, I think,
got
or
one
something.
other one, which was significantly higher, significantly higher.
Who would the firm be that would do the work?
Haley and Ward. Haley Ward.
All right. Well, I make a motion then that we approve the amount of not to exceed $33,600 for the purpose of funding the Coolest Farm boundary survey.
Motion from Chris.
Second.
Second from Bill.
I beat you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. So we have We are recommending that, okay? Second one is the Warren Pole Habitat Study. So this is a $1,200 habitat study with Oxbow. And again, this is part of the CR requirement.
Right, so it's really the meadow habitat study.
Meadow, yeah, I'm sorry, the meadow habitat,
Well,
right.
it didn't say meadow here, but it should.
Yeah, but it is the meadow part. And so this is the beautiful meadow that we have that's growing a lot of native plants right now. They're coming in really well. Too many invasives coming in as well, but it's a beautiful wet meadow. But we need help from a professional to give us some good guidance on how to manage that. We do some cutting around the edges of it, but do we want to cut it completely every year or every 5 years, or never cut it because it's a wet area? It's very, very wet. The wetland delineation took us out to basically the whole area. So the request is to ask the CPC for $1,200 for that habitat study.
I move, Mr. Chairman, that we request the amount of $1,200 for the purpose of a Warren Pole habitat study related to invasive treatment program.
No, this is
Oh,
for,
it's different?
this is just the habitat study.
Oh,
and to
strike
create a-
that then.
to create a-
So $1,200 for the Warren Pole habitat study.
Motion from Chris, second from John. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. That one passes. So the last one is the Warren Pole Invasives Treatment Program. So this is also, this is not part of the CR. This is just good management of the site, in that that site has all of the usual suspects for invasives. We have done a lot of work on that site to keep some of the invasives down in some places, but we need professional help because many of them, like Tree of Heaven and like Burning Bush, unless you use herbicide on them, and you need a certified herbicide applicator, state-certified applicator to do that, of which none of us are, and it's a big hurdle to get there. And the DPW does have a few people, and they're willing to help, but they're not, they're just out straight. So we need to do this right. We need to have the right approach done. This is a professional invasives management company, Oxbow, who we heard earlier on some other topics. And so this is not little, it's $4,500. But this will allow us to get ahead of things or get caught up on things. And so it's also a request to get that money and to make that happen in this year.
So where's the money coming from?
CPC.
TBC.
Yeah. Because it is making an improvement on the product, on the property that was bought using CPA funds, and that meets the requirements of a CPA
Right.
expenditure.
All right, so I make a motion then for the sum not to exceed $500 for the 2025 invasives treatment program.
Thank you. Motion from Chris, second from John. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
So,
Thank
so
you very much.
I just quickly want to add that the boundary survey request also has to go to town meeting because of
Right.
the
Thank you.
amount.
Yes.
The other two do not. The CPC can just
Yeah,
approve
so the
those.
CPC will review and hopefully approve all three of them, but the first one, the coolest one, will go to the special town meeting in June, because it's big, it's a much bigger number.
Yes.
Thank you. Good point, David. Finishing up here, Thanksgiving Forest, I want to get the approval of the commission that we would spend some money on the fencing. It was, I'm gonna round it off, I think it was $800 or $900. Am I right? $900, thank you. To build the fencing, we had talked about this. This is a fence to surround the native pollinator garden. And the correction that, from one of our meetings, a few meetings back, was that this is not for keeping deer out. The group doing the volunteering feels that the plants that are in there are much less likely to be attractive to the deer. This is to keep the dogs and the people out, because that has been happening, people walking through that area. And so this fence will be put in around the parcel. I think it's a good design, I think it's a good plan. And the nice thing about it is, if in 3 years or 5 years, we don't need the fence, it's like IKEA knockdown. We can take it apart, store it, move it somewhere else, and apply it somewhere else. So it's not like it's gonna get thrown away. So I'd like to get the approval of the commission. I think we'll have to figure out the whole reimbursement part, but it's not nothing, so $800 is.
But I think it'll have to come out of next year's
All right,
budget.
it might be next year's budget, but let's get the approval tonight, if that's okay.
So tell me a little bit more about the fencing again. What type of fencing is it?
It's a wire fence, and it's
Wire
actually
fence.
like two, it's like got two kinds of fences that are kind of meshed together, so that it creates a boundary down low to keep maybe groundhogs out.
What's our height gonna be?
I think it's 4 feet,
42 inches.
42 inches.
42 inches?
Yeah.
And how much square footage?
Well, it ends up being like, I think it's 20 by 40.
I think,
Okay.
yeah, it's a 20 by 40
All right.
area, yeah.
And we're looking for how much, 800, you say? So I make a motion then that we authorize the spending of
900.
900?
900, sorry.
I make a motion then to authorize the expenditure of up to $900 for the special fencing in loom two, we said? Is it loom or just fencing?
Just the
The
fencing.
fencing.
yeah.
For the fencing for the native pollinating garden.
What kind
for
of posts
Thanksgiving.
are on the, for the fence?
Metal.
Metal posts?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Make a motion.
And subject to the fact that it has to come, we need funds from the next year's budget.
Yep, yep. So motion from Chris,
Second.
second from Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're good to go there, thank
You
you.
want me to, I'll be taking a look at the one on Red Wing Farm. There's mention of fence there.
That's next on my list here.
Okay.
It wasn't on the agenda, but I did want to talk briefly about that. So Red Wing Farm has had the
Split rail.
split rail fence is in really bad shape. And in fact, it's non-existent in places. It's piled up in a stack. It's really bad. I would like to get us out there, if we can get out there and visit as a commission, do a site visit there. I was proposing Saturday the 24th. I'm traveling until next Thursday, so I think I heard, Chris, you're not around
Yeah,
that
I'm out of
Saturday.
town that weekend, yeah.
But is that possible, Saturday the 24th? And it's just to get eyes on that. I know the,
We looked at that a couple of years ago.
yeah,
Yeah.
It needed to be
It was
done a
in bad
couple of
shape
years
then.
ago.
yeah. Well, I mean, maybe we don't need to see it, but I'd like to.
I think we want to know how much we want to replace if we replace it.
Yeah, I think, so Bob Morris, who's the neighbor who takes care of our grass area, cuts the grass, and lives in the house adjacent, he has the same fence in his backyard, and he just replaced a bunch of posts, so he already gave me an estimate for us of around $1,000, $900 for posts. What I want to do is see if the cross pieces are also bad. I'd like to get eyes on it. I think we should just get eyes on it before we commit to spending that kind of money. And so it'd be good to get us all there at the same time, so maybe we can say Saturday morning at 9 o'clock on the 24th. If you can't make it that day, come another day and get it. But I'd like to get everybody to go over there and see it. It's a great site. It's a beautiful site, and I think it's very picturesque. And but it's incumbent on us to get that fixed. Bob, our neighbor's taking care of his side. We need to take care of our side.
Say 9? That's okay. 9 o'clock, is that what you said?
Let's say 9 o'clock on the 24th, if we can. I mean,
Yep.
there's no deliberation or a meeting or anything. It's just if we can. It's better if we're all there together as best we can.
Okay.
So, okay. And that's it. Agents report, David?
So just quickly, I approved a night pollinator study of the cranberry bog being conducted by the Roland Institute at Harvard. It was the Carlisle Conservation Commission, I believe, that actually commissioned the study on their side of the town line or the reservation. But it turned out there are some black huckleberries that are immediately over on the other side, on the Carlisle portion of the property, that they feel are extremely
Chelmsford.
important. Yeah.
On the Chelmsford
On the Chelmsford side, they feel are extremely important to include in the study. It's just a matter of them having a camera out there an infrared camera that will photograph, the different insects they see at these flowers at night. So I approve that. Next thing is, as Carl alluded to earlier, I approved the Phillip Keys, NEMBA's Phillip Keys Memorial Bike Ride at Thanksgiving Forest on Saturday. So
That's actually, I looked at the map. It's a Great Brook State Park race that
Yes.
spills into Thanksgiving.
Right,
And then
yes.
goes back.
So they're going to be putting some signs out there, I think Saturday morning, and then just removing them after the race, Saturday afternoon. And then just the last one is I've had a couple of requests for an update, status update on 270 Billrica Road. The commission's consultant is working closely with the contractor to be out on site, monitoring activities, in particular implementation of the RAM plan as applicable. So yeah, I'm getting reports on that. That's in good shape.
Okay. Thank you. Meeting minutes, did we get a chance to look at March 25th meeting minutes?
Yep.
Are we okay with them? I was okay with them.
I move to approve the meeting minutes for March 25th, 2025.
Motion from Chris for March 25th.
Second.
Second from Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's all. I know we got a new set tonight, but we're gonna do that next time. So that is it. Oh, I'm sorry.
Could I ask about the loan and the kiosk?
Let's talk afterwards. I'm gonna close up.
Okay.
I'm gonna close up, yeah.
want to say thank you, though.
Yeah.
No, okay, thank you.
Move to close the hearing,
Yep.
to adjourn.
Motion from Chris to close, second from Bill. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Adjourned. Thank you very much, Chelmsford Media. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Appreciate it very much.